Chapter 91. Drag into the room, what? What's my lisu? Chang Fu had a very bad feeling. It was just a kind of snack. Gu Yundong smiled slightly. Oh, it's a kind of poison. If you don't take the antidote in about 4 hours, your entire body will spasm. Your face will twitch, your eyes will be crooked, your mouth will be slanted, and all your hair will fall off. Then you will die laughing. When Madame Wang heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She pounced on her and wanted to hit her, but she was stopped by Feng Danning. You be asterisk, you're so evil at such a young age. I'll beat you to death and sell you to, Gu Yundong snorted. Continue cursing. If you want Chang Fu to die from poisoning, 111 fulfill your wish. You're lying to me. If you dare to kill someone in broad daylight, you won't be able to escape either. Chang Fu didn't believe it. He had never heard of it. However, he still subconsciously dug his throat and tried his best to spit out the lisu that he had swallowed. However, he could not spit it out. He immediately flared up at Madame Wang. You stupid woman, why aren't you pouring me water? Madame Wang could not care less. She went to the kitchen and scooped a large ladle of water for Chang Fu to drink. Gu Yundong stood at the side and watched coldly, allowing them to do whatever they wanted. When they could no longer do anything, she looked at the two people with tears in their eyes. If you don't believe me, then wait for 4 hours. I don't care. Oh, right, if you don't believe me, you can go to the doctor to see if you really don't have long to live. We'll go back to the village first. After saying that, she turned around and left. Feng Danning did not understand her goal and quickly followed. Chang Fu quickly shouted, wait a minute. He covered his throat and staggered to her. He widened his eyes and asked, what exactly do you want? If what she said was true, he would have to spend 4 hours to go to Yongfu village to ask her for the antidote. At that time, he would be dead. Gu Yundong knew that he was suspicious and afraid of death. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, simple. One want you to take me to the Peng residence to look for Peng Zhongfei. Chang Fu shook his head like a rattle drum. Impossible. If one bring you there, young Master Peng will beat me to death. Then it's not negotiable. Goodbye. Wait, Chang Fu said fiercely. 111 think about it. Alright, take your time to think about it. You should know that I'm going to the Peng residence to get my things back. In short, I won't give you the antidote before one get them back. You can estimate the time yourself. Chang Fu's expression changed drastically. He could not care less. Let's go now. I'll bring you there immediately. Gu Yundong laughed. She had asked Feng Danning to wait for her here. Feng Danning wanted to follow, but he was rooted to the ground by Gu Yundong's words that he would hold her back. Gu Yundong had asked him to follow her to the county because she wanted him to bring her to the Chang family. Only Chang Fu and Gu Yundong were going to the Peng residence. Chang Fu did not dare to delay at all and found the nearest way to the Peng residence. He had just been there yesterday, and Peng Zhongfei was quite amiable to him. Therefore, when he said that he had something urgent to discuss with young Master Peng today, the gatekeeper did not stop him. However, when they were about to reach the Jinglan manor where Peng Zhongfei lived, the servant at the door stopped them. Eldest young master is discussing something with young Master Liu. Wait here. Chang Fu was burning with anxiety, but he did not dare to act rashly. He could only hope that Lu Wei would come out sooner. Gu Yundong, on the other hand, was calm and composed. She was still in the mood to size up the huge Peng residence. After a while, she excused herself to go to the outhouse. The servant at the door glanced at her and found a passing maidservant to bring her over. Gu Yundong followed behind her and walked slowly. Unexpectedly, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and dragged her into a room. Chapter 92. Going all out. Gu Yundong's expression changed and she moved her elbow backward. It's me. A familiar voice came from behind her, conveniently blocking her elbow. Gu Yundong was slightly stunned. She turned around and saw Shao Qingyuan's expressionless face. She was surprised. Why are you here? Shao Qingyuan saw that she did not realize that she was still in his arms, so he pretended not to know anything. He only lowered his voice and said softly, one came with young Master Liu. Young Master Liu? The one who's chatting with Peng Zhongfei? You know him? I'm not very familiar with him. He's the rich young master who bought our wild boar last time. He's also Lu Wei, who said that he was classmates with the county magistrate's young master yesterday. He wants me to bring him into the mountains for 100 taels of silver. After a pause, Shao Qingyuan continued, I heard that you came to the Peng residence to look for Peng Zhongfei. Young Master Lu happened to be here, so I came to take a look. Gu Yundong blinked. Are you here to help me? Shao Qingyuan was silent for a while. I went into the mountains this morning and caught 2 pheasants. I want to eat salt-baked chicken tonight. Gu Yundong was speechless. You've worked hard enough for food. Shao Qingyuan nodded. I've never eaten it before. It's said to be very delicious. Poor child. Although Gu Yundong was also an orphan, she had eaten good food from kind people when she was young in the orphanage. How do you plan to take back your things? Shao Qingyuan looked at her pitiful gaze and his heart skipped a beat. He had the desire to change his excuse. He was worried that if this continued, it would backfire, so he hurriedly changed the topic. When Gu Yundong heard his question, she suddenly realized that she still had important things to do. Only then did she realize that the two of them were so close. She immediately retreated and said, What else can I do? Of course, I'll beat that Peng Zhongfei up and make him return the thing to me. Shao Qingyuan, Gu Yundong saw that he wanted to say something but did not know where to start. She was amused. You really believe me? I'm not a fool. Besides, her main goal was not to get the blueprints back. Without these two, she could draw a better one. However, once the house was built, Peng Zhongfei could still find someone to smash it. Hitting someone was a bad idea. Let's be serious. Do me a favor. Not only will I make salt-baked chicken for you tonight, but I'll also cook spicy chicken for you. How about that? Gu Yundong had a seductive look on her face. Shao Qingyuan felt that these words sounded a little familiar. After thinking for a moment, he remembered that he had seduced Lu Wei like this before. How is it? Are you going to help me? Don't worry, it's just a small favor. Gu Yundong used his fingers to create a small distance between them. Shao Qingyuan's voice became exceptionally low. Okay. He would do anything to help. Gu Yundong smiled and lowered her head to tell him his plan. When one go out later and see Peng Zhongfei, do this. Do you understand? Okay. Gu Yundong patted his shoulder. Be careful. If there's any danger, retreat immediately. Yeah. See you then. Gu Yundong carefully left the room. After walking for a while, she saw the maidservant who had led her looking for her. Gu Yundong coughed lightly. The maidservant suddenly turned her head and scolded her, What's wrong with you? Who asked you to walk around? Do you know what this place is? Can you bear the responsibility if you offend Madam and Miss? Chapter 93. I'll save your life. You walked too fast and left me behind. Do you think you're in the right? Gu Yundong glanced at her. This servant girl seemed to have a sense of superiority. When she saw that Gu Yundong was wearing ordinary clothes and was not a decent person on the surface, she distanced herself from her in disdain. There was at least a 10-meter gap. You. The maid pointed at her angrily. Sure enough, you came from a poor place. You don't know the rules. Gu Yundong turned around and left. The maidservant was even more furious and ran up hurriedly. Where are you going? Jinglan Manor. She had only come out to understand the structure of the Peng residence and make some small moves. There was no need for that now. This time, she walked quickly, leaving the exasperated maid far behind. When Gu Yundong arrived outside the courtyard, Chang Fu was anxiously waiting for her to return. You're finally here. Young Master Peng asked us to go in. Quick, follow me. He was anxious for Gu Yundong to quickly take back the blueprints and give him the antidote. Young Master Lu has left? Chang Fu shook his head. No. Gu Yundong nodded and followed the servant in front. The Jinglan Manor was a little big. It seemed that this young master of the main branch had quite a status in the Peng family. When Gu Yundong entered, Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei were commenting on a painting. It seemed like there was nothing important. Were all these young masters so free? Especially since this painting was a portrait of beauty, even though it was very abstract. The servant walked to Peng Zhongfei's side and whispered, "Young master, Chang Fu is here." Peng Zhongfei raised his head and seemed a little dissatisfied. He waved at Chang Fu and said, "What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Don't you know that one have something to tell young Master Liu?" Chang Fu felt bitter. He didn't want to, but this girl surnamed Gu was too ruthless. He could only smile and flatter, "Young Master Peng, it's my fault. I'll apologize to you first." Alright, hurry up and say it. Get lost when you're done." Peng Zhongfei waved his hand impatiently, but his gaze towards Chang Fu was filled with warning. It was best not to speak nonsense in front of Lu Wei. It was also Lu Wei who had insisted on letting Chang Fu in just now. Otherwise, he would not have bothered with him. Chang Fu responded obediently and hurriedly took a step back. He said, "Young Master Peng, this is Miss Gu. She's looking for you." "You?" Peng Zhongfei glared at him. This kid actually dared to take the initiative to bring an outsider in to see him. Gu Yundong immediately stepped forward and cupped his hands slightly. He lowered his head and said, "Young Master Peng, the situation is urgent. I asked Chang Fu to bring me here." "Where did you come from? Hurry up and get lost. How dare you get close to me? I don't like a woman with no chest or butt." Peng Zhongfei often encountered such things and wanted to send her away without even asking. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. "Can you stop feeling so good about yourself? Who has taken a fancy to you? I'm here to save young Master Peng's life." Gu Yundong looked up at him solemnly. Peng Zhongfei was stunned for a moment before looking at her carefully. Although this woman was plain from the beginning to the end and dressed very ordinarily, her face was still good-looking, but she was a little young. Yes, Peng Zhongfei expressed that he still liked people with breasts and buttocks. However, since she was quite beautiful, he would listen to her. "To save my life?" Peng Zhongfei sneered. "Why didn't one know that I was going to die?" Chapter 94. Because of the blueprint, Gu Yundong stepped forward. "Young Master Peng doesn't know me yet, so 111 introduce myself first. My name is Gu Yundong, and am the owner of the 3 drawings that young Master Peng obtained yesterday." Peng Zhongfei's expression suddenly changed and he suddenly sat up straight. "Get out. What 3 blueprints? Those blueprints belong to our Peng family. Not only did you steal them without permission, but you also want to call me a thief. Do you really think I, Peng Zhongfei, am a kind person? Someone, drag her out and break her hand." The servant outside the door immediately ran in and pulled her back. Chang Fu was extremely anxious. On one hand, he was afraid that Peng Zhongfei would blame him. On the other hand, he was afraid that Gu Yundong would die and he would not have the antidote. However, Gu Yundong was not anxious at all. When the servant came over, she would hide. As she hid, she shouted anxiously, "Young Master Peng, you can break my hand, but one still have to tell you that there's something strange about those 3 blueprints. If you die later, it won't be my fault." "Strange?" Peng Zhongfei was stunned. Lu Wei, who was beside him, also said, "Brother Peng, I think she's serious. Why don't we hear what's strange about it? If what she said is true, then you—" Peng Zhongfei tightened his grip and waved his hand to stop the servant. Then, he glared at Gu Yundong with a dark expression. "Alright, I'll give you a chance. If you can't explain, not only will I break your hand, but your mouth will also be sewn shut." Gu Yundong took 2 deep breaths and sat at the side to pour himself a glass of water. "Young Master Peng, you'll know what's going on after you hear it." As she spoke, she looked around mysteriously. Peng Zhongfei understood and asked Chang Fu and the servant to leave. Finally, he looked at Lu Wei. The latter said seriously, 111 be a witness. If this girl talks nonsense, I'll definitely stand on your side." Peng Zhongfei's lips twitched. He knew that he would not be able to chase this guy away. Even if he knew about the blueprint, it did not matter much. Could it be that he would stand up for justice for a country girl? The Liu family was not someone who would interfere when they saw injustice. Seeing that he was silent, Lu Wei went up and closed the door very considerately. Then he sat down and said, "Miss, tell me what's strange?" "Young Master Peng, do you know my background?" Gu Yundong asked. Peng Zhongfei nodded. It was precisely because he knew that she had no background that he took the blueprint boldly. Gu Yundong said, "Isn't it strange for young Master Peng? I'm a refugee. I even brought my mother and younger siblings along on the way to escape. But in the end, not only did one arrive at Yongfu village safely, but I also used Lu Taels of silver to build such a huge house. Think about it, who can do this among millions of refugees?" When she said this, not only was Peng Zhongfei stunned, but even Lu Wei was surprised. However, when she thought of what he had seen and heard yesterday, she could not help but say, "Isn't it because you're ruthless?" That's just fooling the villagers who don't know anything. Anyone with a brain won't believe that a 13-year-old girl could do this with her ruthlessness. There were so many bandits and refugees on the road. Could one deal with more than 10 people alone? Lu Wei was speechless. He believed her. Was he brainless? Unwilling to give up, he snorted. "Then tell me, how did you do it?" "Because," Gu Yundong suddenly lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "those 3 blueprints." Chapter 95. Tearing them to pieces, Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei felt an inexplicable chill down their spines. What does it have to do with those 3 blueprints? Of course it's related. Let me tell you, on the way, I met a very strange old man. Gu Yundong expressed that if she was given a fulcrum, she could make up a whole story. Before that old man died, he gave me those 3 blueprints and said that they were his life's work. At that time, one even thought that you drew just these 3 blueprints for your life? You're too useless. You have a lot of ideas. Gu Yundong was especially good at creating an atmosphere of storytelling. Her voice was sometimes high and sometimes low. After he handed the blueprint to me, he asked me to choose a location at the foot of a mountain after we settled down. According to the blueprint, we will build a green brick-tiled house. Then, we will reserve a room for him there. We will offer him 3 incense sticks every morning and night. At that time, I said that I had no money, no ability, and that I wasn't even sure how many days one could live. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to help him. One didn't expect that old man to take out 100 taels of silver and give it to me. He said that this was the money used to build a house and he would bless me to reach a safe place safely. However, I had to fulfill his request. Otherwise, I would be unlucky. If it was serious, it would kill me. Wasn't he a liar? Even a charlatan wouldn't dare to make up such a story, right? If he was really so capable, why would he die of old age and illness? I didn't believe that he's so capable. However, on account of the 100 taels of silver, one still helped to hold his funeral after he died. As for the 3 blueprints, I felt that it was a burden to keep them, so one tore them up. Then a terrifying thing happened. Gu Yundong swallowed hard as she spoke. She widened her eyes and looked terrified, causing the other 2 to hold their breaths. Gu Yundong said, "After tearing the blueprints, I didn't take them seriously. In the end, at night, when we took out the blanket from the basket and were about to rest, we realized that the 3 blueprints had appeared in front of me." "Hiss," Lu Wei gasped. "Really?" "Of course it's true. I was scared to death at that time. It was as if I had seen a ghost. In a panic, I tore it apart again, but in the blink of an eye, they appeared intact again. Moreover, that night one fell while walking. One choked on my food and water. One even encountered bandits who wanted to kill me. I almost lost my life. It was as if all the unfortunate things happened that day." When Gu Yundong mentioned this, she still looked like she had lingering fears. At that time, I felt that what the old man said might be true. I didn't dare to be disrespectful, so I kept the blueprint well. In the end, one really survived with my mother and younger siblings. So when one arrived at Yongfu village, I immediately chose a land with a backing and built a house. I didn't expect that the blueprint would be taken away by young Master Peng this morning. I panicked. Young Master Peng is the precious young master of our county's Peng family. If something happened because of me, wouldn't I be unable to absolve myself of the blame even if I died 1,000 times? One rushed over. One thought that before the situation was too serious, one would quickly explain it to young Master Peng. Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei felt like they were listening to a heavenly book. Their faces were filled with disbelief. However, people nowadays were still very respectful of ghosts and deities, especially when Gu Yundong said it in a terrifying manner, as if it really happened. However, It was not as if she could say whatever she wanted. Peng Zhongfei snorted. Don't tell me you're making up a story. Who knows if it's true? That's simple. If young Master Peng doesn't believe me, you can take out that blueprint and tear one to see if it will appear intact again. Peng Zhongfei frowned. He gritted his teeth and really took out the blueprint. Then, in front of Lu Wei and Gu Yundong, he tore it into pieces, the kind that could not even be pieced together. Gu Yundong lowered his head and smiled. Chapter 96. It really appeared the fragments fell to the ground. Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei narrowed their eyes and stared at the ground. Their expressions were especially solemn, as if they wanted to watch helplessly as the fragments reassembled into a blueprint in front of them. However, there was no movement for a long time. Peng Zhongfei sneered. As expected, you're lying. Have you thought about whether to break your hand or sew your mouth? Gu Yundong frowned. That's impossible. Let me take a look. As she spoke, she walked towards the two of them. When she walked behind Peng Zhongfei, she gently touched his back. That action was instantaneous. Not to mention Lu Wei, even Peng Zhongfei himself did not notice it at all. Gu Yundong looked at the fragments of the blueprint on the ground. When she met Peng Zhongfei's gloomy expression, she suddenly shivered. She seemed to have thought of something and clapped her hands. Oh, right, I remember now. After one tore the blueprint appeared elsewhere. Why don't we look in the room? Peng Zhongfei suddenly turned around and stretched out his hand, almost hitting her eyes. You still want to stall for time and play tricks, right? Before he could finish speaking, Lu Wei, who was standing beside him, suddenly took a big step back and knocked over 2 round stools by his feet, making a dull sound. Peng Zhongfei frowned and turned to look at him. He saw Lu Wei staring at his back in shock. The blueprint has indeed appeared. Where? Peng Zhongfei panicked for a moment, but he still forced himself to calm down. Lu Wei pointed at him. On your back. This was too strange. Lu Wei wiped his eyes forcefully, looking like he couldn't believe it. Impossible. Peng Zhongfei shook his head. His hand subconsciously reached back, but he stopped halfway. He swallowed his saliva and asked, Is it really on my back? Lu Wei nodded desperately. Peng Zhongfei instantly felt cold sweat on his body. After a pause, he closed his eyes and suddenly pulled the blueprint off his back. As soon as he saw the contents of the blueprint, Peng Zhongfei widened his eyes and sucked in a cold breath. He threw the blueprint away. Gu Yundong was quick-witted. Before the blueprint fell to the ground, she hurriedly grabbed it and exhaled softly. Then she looked up at Peng Zhongfei and whispered, Young Master Peng, I'm not lying to you, right? Peng Zhongfei walked far away from the blueprint. He wanted to squeeze out a smile, but he could not. He couldn't help but mutter, Impossible. This must be a trick of yours. Impossible. Gu Yundong was very kind. Then why don't you tear another one? Get lost. What kind of stupid idea was that? Gu Yundong carefully placed the blueprint in her hand on the table and gently smoothed it out. Then she put her palms together and closed her eyes as she muttered, Don't blame anyone. Grandpa, young Master Peng didn't do it on purpose. Don't blame him. After all, this matter is too strange. Not to mention young Master Peng, no one will believe it. Peng Zhongfei was crept out by her. He felt that there was really something in the room. Fortunately, there were 2 people here. He chuckled dryly. That's right. Who would believe such a thing? Bang. Pa. Just as he finished speaking, a cracking sound suddenly echoed in his ears. Other than Gu Yundong, Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei were so shocked that they almost jumped up. Their expressions changed instantly. Chapter 97. Maybe the wind is too strong. The 2 of them slowly turned their heads with some difficulty and looked at the place where the sound had come from. There was a shelf there. There was originally a half-meter tall vase on it. At this moment, the vase fell to the ground and shattered without any warning. Just like the blueprint that Peng Zhongfei had torn off just now, it turned into pieces. Peng Zhongfei swallowed his saliva and did not dare to go forward. On the other hand, Gu Yundong walked to the vase in a few steps. She glanced at the broken vase, the flowers on the ground, and the water. She looked up at the 2 of them and said, Actually, perhaps the wind was a little strong just now. The vase was blown over, so it shattered. It might not be related to the blueprint. Their gazes immediately shifted to her, and their expressions said, even if you want to find an excuse, you have to find something decent, okay? Not to mention that the door of this room was closed and there was no wind at all. Even if there was, could it blow down such a heavy vase? There was still water inside. It was not low in weight at all, okay? Gu Yundong laughed dryly. Then what should we do now? Lu Wei looked at Peng Zhongfei, whose face was pale. If the blueprint had suddenly appeared behind him, it might have been the girl who did it with some unknown method, but this vase had coincidentally shattered completely. It was too strange. The three of them stood far away. There was no wind, and the ground did not shake, unless there was a ghost. Lu Wei couldn't help but shiver. He regretted staying behind to watch the drama. Would the old man think that he was in cahoots with Peng Zhongfei? In all honesty, he was a good person. Thinking of this, Lu Wei could not help but take a small step back. Peng Zhongfei was flustered and did not notice his small actions. His footsteps were a little slow and trembling as he moved towards the vase. Gu Yundong turned his body slightly to make way for him. At the same time, she pulled out a crossbow from under the cabinet and stored it in her space. Just now, she took advantage of the fact that the two of them were not paying attention and aimed the crossbow at the vase. The angle happened to be at the foot of the cabinet, which was not easy to see. The moment the vase shattered, she came over to block their vision. Perfect. It'll scare you to death. Peng Zhongfei did not reach the broken vase. He stopped 2 steps away. He swallowed hard and looked at Gu Yundong. He said, "Take the blueprint back. Take it back quickly. Don't appear in front of me again." Gu Yundong stood up. "Don't worry, young Master Peng. Before she could finish speaking, a faint and ancient voice suddenly sounded in the room. "Kid, you're so bold. If I don't punish you, do you really think I'm easy to bully?" Lu Wei was shocked and turned to look at the source of the sound. No one, not a single person, had said such a thing out of the blue. Peng Zhongfei's lips were pale as he looked at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong looked also puzzled. She pretended to be very angry and ran to the place where the sound came from. "Who's playing tricks here? Come out." She lifted the curtain over there and put the recording pen that she had placed in the curtain into her spatial storage. That was a line from a television drama. After separating from Shao Qingyuan, she had found a place to secretly record it. There's no one." Gu Yundong turned her head and her voice was trembling. She looked at Peng Zhongfei as if she was about to cry. "I've never encountered such a situation before. I was just a little unlucky. There was no need to be so scary. I'm so afraid." Chapter 98, 200 Tales of Sincerity. Lu Wei expressed that he was also very afraid. Could he leave now? Just as he was thinking this, hurried footsteps came from outside, followed by Peng Zhongfei's voice. "Young master, bad news. Aunt Cui lost her footing and fell into the water." "What?" Peng Zhongfei quickly opened the door. "How is she?" She was saved, but she was quite shocked. "That's good." Peng Zhongfei heaved a sigh of relief. The voice that had appeared out of nowhere echoed in his mind. "Punishment. Oh yes, it must be punishment." He hurriedly turned his head and looked at the blueprint that Gu Yundong had placed on the table. He trembled and apologized sincerely. "Great Immortal, it's my fault. One was wrong. I'll apologize to you. One deserved to die. I'm a bastard. I'm not a good person. I won't have a good ending for doing bad things." As he spoke, he slapped himself hard twice. "Great Immortal, one promise that one won't be greedy for the blueprints in the future and won't destroy them. Moreover, this really isn't my fault. It's all because of him. He gave it to me. 111 deal with him later." With that, he looked at Gu Yundong. "Is this okay? I don't know either. In the past, one was unlucky when I tore up the blueprint. You even planned to let someone smash the house after it was built. The situation seems to be more serious than mine. One don't know if he will accept your apology," Gu Yundong said awkwardly. Just as she finished speaking, the servant outside the door said in a panic, "Young master, Black Wolf." Black Wolf suddenly foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground. The Black Wolf was a wolfhound raised by Peng Zhongfei. It usually ate raw meat and drank hot blood. It was raised very ferociously. Not to mention the people outside, even many servants in the Peng residence were bitten until they bled. However, Peng Zhongfei liked it very much. He felt that this dog had a wolf's nature. He often trained it to bite living creatures, including humans. Now, this dog died an inexplicable death. No, how could it be inexplicable? Peng Zhongfei knelt on the ground this time. He was so frightened that his voice trembled. Great Immortal, please spare me. I was blind to not recognize you. One was wrong. Give me a chance. 111 offer you 3 incense sticks in the morning and night. 111 buy you the best tribute. How about this? They'll pay for your house. Please spare me this time. Gu Yundong's eyes flickered. He was finally getting to the point. Young Master Peng, don't be like this. Actually, Grandpa is not a bad person. As long as you sincerely repent, he will definitely forgive you. Gu Yundong said, actually, there's no need to pay any money to build a house. Grandpa has already given me the money. That won't do, that won't do. One have to give it. How about this? You can keep the Lu Taels of silver that the Great Immortal gave you to buy something else for the Great Immortal. Don't you still need to offer 3 incense sticks in the morning and night? Buy the best incense. The Great Immortal's house is very important. You have to build it well. Lu Taels of silver is not enough. 200 taels of silver, 111 give you 200 taels of silver. Gu Yundong was in a difficult position. Is this really good? Then I'm taking advantage of you, young Master Peng. What do you mean by taking advantage? You're just putting in a lot of effort for the Great Immortal. He'll pay and you'll help. I'm very sincere. Lu Wei hurriedly said, I'm also sincere. I'll pay 50 taels. He hoped that the Great Immortal would not treat him and Peng Zhongfei as allies and let him suffer. Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. These rich young masters were really prodigals. Chapter 99. Perfect resolution. After Peng Zhongfei said that he would pay, he waited for another half an hour. When there was no more bad news outside, he slowly heaved a sigh of relief. It seems that the Great Immortal has agreed, right? He looked at Gu Yundong and asked for confirmation in a low voice. Gu Yundong thought about it and nodded uncertainly. Probably? As soon as she finished speaking, another voice sounded in the room. This time, it was different from the previous time. It was a voice that was difficult to tell if it was male or female. At least you know what's good for you. In the future, you're not allowed to cause trouble for the Gu family. You're not allowed to say a word about what happened today. Yes, yes, yes. Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei nodded repeatedly. Gu Yundong took the opportunity when they were not paying attention to retract the recording pen. She had recorded this herself, using a voice changer app on her phone. After all, this sentence mentioned the Gu family, so she could not record it from the television drama. However, it was precisely because of the completely different voice from before that the fear in Peng Zhongfei and the other man's hearts intensified. He turned around and went to the inner room. After a while, he took out 2 banknotes, both of which were 100 denominations. There you go. Gu Yundong took the money guiltily. Young Master Peng, don't worry too much. At most, you'll be unlucky a few times. Look, I'm fine. Then I'll leave first. Take care. Gu Yundong put away the drawings on the table and turned to leave the Jinglan Manor. She had drawn this blueprint earlier and placed it in her spatial storage. After she handed the first blueprint to Feng Danning, she would sometimes think of places that needed to be modified and added, so she drew a new one. She planned to give it to Feng Danning in 2 days. In fact, there were only some small details that were different. There were not many changes. However, Peng Zhongfei had not studied it carefully. How could he tell the difference between the torn blueprint and the new one? In any case, he was scared out of his wits. Gu Yundong laughed. As soon as he went out, Chang Fu welcomed him. Gu Yundong glanced at him. Let's go. After taking back the blueprint, she did not have to worry about Peng Zhongfei's revenge and even earned 200 taels of silver. Yes, perfect. No, everything would be fine after the last thing. Chang Fu saw that she was in a good mood and had the blueprint in her hand. She actually took it back. He wondered what she had done. As soon as the 2 of them left, Lu Wei also bade farewell. Peng Zhongfei was no longer in the mood to entertain him. He waved his hand and let him leave. Lu Wei did not leave immediately after leaving the Peng residence. He found an alley and stopped, waiting for Shao Qingyuan in the carriage. Peng Zhongfei paced around in frustration. Thinking of what had just happened, he still felt that something was in the room, so he went out to see his beloved dog. The servant hurriedly followed, but he was sent away by Peng Zhongfei to clean up the broken vase on the ground. He walked very quickly. However, not long after he walked out of the Jinglan manor, a sack was suddenly thrown over his head. Then, a series of punches and kicks landed on his body. Peng Zhongfei screamed in pain and could not resist at all. He waited until the other party was almost tired from fighting before stopping. Shao Qingyuan looked at the motionless person on the ground with an indifferent gaze. From afar, a servant heard the noise and rushed over. He took advantage of the chaos in the Peng residence and slipped away from the back door. Unexpectedly, not long after he walked out, he saw two people tugging at each other. Chapter 10. Dare to say such a thing? Shao Qingyuan frowned. Why were these two people here? What were they up to? He was not in a hurry to leave. He stood on the spot and listened. It was Hu Liang and Zhuangzi from Yongfu village. At this moment, the two of them lowered their voices and argued until their faces were red. They even fought. Hu Liang arrived at the county town a little late. After all, both Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan had taken a car over. When he arrived outside the Peng residence, he looked for the servant he knew. B0XO. However, that person was not around. The gatekeeper saw that he was sloppy and looked extremely ugly. He was unwilling to pay attention to him, so Hu Liang was blocked outside the residence. He was furious. Even if he was anxious, he could only wait outside. He could be domineering in the village, but in the county, he was a coward and could only cower. Unexpectedly, not long after, Zhuangzi came and wanted to pull him away. How could Hu Liang let it go? He even kicked him ruthlessly. You coward! You're just like your parents. Your parents were beaten up and scolded, but you didn't dare to fight back. You're the same. You're actually afraid of a 13-year-old brat. Don't say that you're my brother in the future. Get lost. Zhuangzi was furious when he heard that. He was recuperating at home today. Later, his parents came back and told him about the Peng family. He did not think much of it, but he felt that the girl from the Gu family would definitely not let the matter rest. Her temper was not like that. In the end, not long after, Goshen came to his house and told him about Hu Liang's plan to destroy the Gu family's new house. The moment Zhuangzi heard that, he panicked. Although they had a disagreement the day before, they had been brothers for many years. It was impossible for him to just watch him court death. Gu Yundong could not deal with the Peng family, but she was more than enough to deal with Hu Liang. Hadn't he suffered enough these few days? Therefore, he could not be bothered to rest at home. He rushed to the Gu family's homestead and did not see anyone. Later, someone said that he had gone in the direction of the county. Zhuangzi was furious and immediately rushed to the county city. As expected, he saw Hu Liang pacing left and right at the back door of the Peng family. Seeing that he had not entered yet, Zhuangzi heaved a sigh of relief and wanted to take him away on the spot. Who would have thought that not only was he obstinate, but he also kept poking at his heart. He was also angry. Hu Liang, one used to call you big brother because you were loyal, decisive, and smart. But look at you now. You just have to hold on to a little girl and not let go. You clearly suffered at her hands and lost money. You knew that you were not her match, but you still insisted on charging up. You're saying that I'm not loyal, decisive, or smart enough now, right? Hu Liang interrupted him impatiently. Let me tell you, it's precisely because one suffered a loss that I have to take revenge. This is a man's backbone. Indifferent from your parents. They don't dare to make a sound when their house is destroyed. They only know how to cry when their family's land is snatched. One think if your sister is raped one day, your family will only obediently give her to the rapist. They won't even dare to let out a fart. Perhaps they have to thank the rapist for taking a fancy to her. Hu Liang. Zhuangzi's eyes widened. How dare you say such a thing? Why wouldn't one dare? Your family is so cowardly. Otherwise, why haven't you had any friends since you were young? If it weren't for the fact that I pity you, you wouldn't even be my underling. One don't want you as my underling anymore. In the future, you might have to rely on your sister who sells her body. Chapter 101. Thrown to the Peng residence, Xianxia punched him hard in the face. His eyes were bloodshot and his gaze was filled with hatred. Hu Liang, if you want to die, go ahead. From now on we're not brothers. Just treat it as my kindness being fed to the dogs. He ignored him and turned to leave. Hu Liang sneered. Do you think I care? If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to gather 4 people, one wouldn't be willing to bring you along. Coward. He touched his face and snorted. Damn it, he should have retaliated just now. This kid was too bold to hit him. When he returned to the village, he would teach him a lesson. Although Qingyuan did not hear everything, he knew that Hu Liang was here to cause trouble for Gu Yundong. This person was still unwilling to give up after being taught a lesson. He was like a plaster. So, Qingyuan could not be blamed. Qingyuan flashed out from behind him and knocked him out with a single palm. Then he walked to the back door of the Peng residence and waited quietly for a moment. When the gatekeeper was called away to speak, he carried Hu Liang in. He directly threw the man behind a big tree outside Jinglan Manor and left the Peng residence silently. Lu Wei was still waiting for him in the alley. When he saw him coming over, he hurriedly lifted the curtain and let the guy come up. Before Qingyuan could sit down, he couldn't wait to say, "Let me tell you, one just." Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly realized that he couldn't reveal what was happening in the Peng residence. Hence, the tip of his tongue turned and he immediately changed the topic. Let's go, let's go. We'll go up the mountain now. We agreed to fight roe deer and tigers. However, Qingyuan said, it's getting late today. Let's go another day. Another day? But I'm in a hurry. However, this timing was indeed a little inappropriate. Lu Wei could only sigh and compromise. All right, then, tomorrow it is. All right. Qingyuan turned his head away. Then he got out of the car and left without looking back. Lu Wei pouted. We haven't even finished talking. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? However, what exactly did he go to the Peng residence for? At that time, he only asked him to look for Peng Zhongfei to chat and drink tea. He said that he had something to do and looked for the servants in the residence. It was just that this matter took a long time. Qingyuan quickly walked on the road to Yongfu village. He did not delay for long, but he still did not meet Gu Yundong, who had left earlier. At this moment, Gu Yundong had already followed Chang Fu back to the Chang family. Chang Fu pleaded, Look, you've brought back the blueprint. Can you give me the antidote now? Gu Yundong gave him a white pill and Chang Fu swallowed it without a word. Gu Yundong ignored him. Chang Fu did not need her to teach him a lesson. Peng Zhongfei had suffered such a huge shock. Wouldn't he find trouble with this guy? Hence, she turned around and said to Feng Danning, the matter has been resolved. It's rare for me to come to the county city. One want to buy something. Do you want to go back first? With the 250 taels of silver that Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei had given her, she was a rich person now. She could buy many items that were not in the plan. There's no hurry. What do you want to buy? One can help you carry it. Feng Danning really admired Gu Yundong. At such a young age, she was robbed by the overlord young master of the Peng family. It actually took less than 4 hours for her to bring it back and she was completely fine. Feng Danning felt that he could not do it. He suddenly felt that all these years had been in vain. Gu Yundong thought for a moment. After all, Feng Danning was more familiar with this county than her. She nodded. All right, let's go. Chapter 102. Buying a carriage. Gu Yundong first brought Feng Danning for lunch. It was the best restaurant in the county, Yuexiang restaurant. Feng Danning only knew that the food in this restaurant was good, but he had never been willing to come in to eat. He did not expect to take advantage of Yundong and taste the food at Yuexiang restaurant. It was delicious, but it was too expensive and the portion was small. Just a palm-sized dish cost 30 copper coins. Feng Danning felt sorry for Gu Yundong's money. However, this girl was very generous. After eating, she asked Feng Danning to bring her to the market. She wanted to buy a carriage. You want to buy a carriage? Feng Danning was surprised. This Gu girl who had escaped from the wilderness was indeed more capable than he had imagined. He thought that it would be good enough if she could take out 100 taels of silver to build a house. He did not expect that she still had the money to buy a carriage. Gu Yundong nodded. It's convenient to buy a carriage. If we hadn't taken someone else's mule cart into the city today, we wouldn't know how much time we would have wasted. Moreover, my sister-in-law is still young. With a carriage, we can bring them to the city to play. Gu Yunshu and Gu Yunke rarely had the chance to go out and play. In the past, when they were in the Gu family, Gu Yunshu was probably the only one who had gone to town. Later, they were on the way to escape. This time, they went far, but they did not have the leisure to stop and take a good look. Now that she had settled down, she had money on hand and could send Yunshu to school. In the future, she would bring them out to play whenever there was a festival. If you want to buy horses, you have to go to the market on East Street, which specializes in selling livestock. It's just that it's already past noon. One don't know if there are any good horses. Gu Yundong nodded. Then let's go to the market in East Street to take a look. If we can't find anything good today, well, come back another day. Feng Danning laughed and led her to East Street. After noon, the market was not as lively. Feng Danning knew someone here. He was a smart kid who looked after the place. He directly brought them to the innermost part of the market. Uncle Feng, you're lucky today. Just now, the broker from the Wan family brokerage brought 3 or 4 horses over. I've seen them. They're better than the ones sold this morning. Feng Danning perked up. Really? Hurry up and bring us to take a look. The horses were indeed good horses, but they were also not cheap. Gu Yundong was not very good at checking horses, but Feng Danning had some experience. In addition, the kid beside him helped to bargain. In the end, he bought a strong brown-haired horse for 15 taels of silver. This horse was quite friendly to Gu Yundong, and she liked it. It was not old, so she decided that it was it. When the broker asked her if she wanted a carriage, she definitely did. However, there was no need for it to be too gorgeous. After all, she often went back and forth in the village. It was all dirt. In the end, Gu Yundong chose an ordinary-looking but sturdy carriage. She put on the horse rope and could leave. This carriage also cost 3 taels. Tsk, it was expensive. But now that she had a carriage and a house, Gu Yundong was very satisfied. After the carriage was bought, Gu Yundong wanted to go to South Street to buy something. It was prosperous there and was close to the city gate. Feng Danning was a little excited as he drove the carriage. Men loved vehicles, regardless of modern times or ancient times, even if this vehicle was not his. The two of them took the carriage to the East Street. Unexpectedly, when the carriage passed by the back road of the Peng residence, the door of the Peng residence opened and a person was thrown out heavily. If not for Feng Danning's sharp eyes and quick hands, the horse would have been shocked. Chapter 103. Who cares? Gu Yundong quickly held the carriage door and sat down. He looked up at the person who had been thrown out. That person was in a sorry state. The lower half of his body looked bloody, and his face was swollen. Why does he look so familiar? Where have I seen him before? She didn't know him, but Feng Danning did. He was shocked. Isn't this Hu Liang? Why is he here and beaten up like this by the Peng family? Yundong, should we? Feng Danning wanted to ask if he could help. Although this rascal was quite hateful, they were from the same village after all. It was a little unreasonable for him to stand by and do nothing when he saw him like this. Unexpectedly, before he could finish speaking, Hu Liang, who was beaten half to death, started crying at the Peng residence. I'm not lying. I'm really here to look for young Master Peng. That Gu Yundong wants to harm young Master Peng. She went around our village saying that young Master Peng stole her things and even said that she has a backer to torture young Master Peng to death. Hu Liang did not know how things had turned out like this. He had been in the Peng residence since the moment he woke up. He was about to look for young Master Peng when he was caught. They said that he was a thief who had broken into the residence. He must have been involved in young Master's accident. Then he was beaten up without a word and thrown out. Gu Yundong sneered. Facing Feng Danning's similarly gloomy expression, she said, "Who cares if he dies?" It didn't look like he had been hit very seriously. He still had so much strength to frame her. Feng Danning did not look at Hu Liang again and drove the carriage past him. Hu Liang still wanted to work hard, but he did not expect another person to come out of the Peng residence. It was Peng Zhongfei's servant. This servant had been taking care of Peng Zhongfei, who had been beaten up previously. Later on, he heard the subordinates talking about Hu Liang. When he reported it to the young master was actually very angry. He said that the Gu family was under his protection now. Whoever dared to destroy the Gu family's house would be going against the Peng family. He asked the servant to come out and give Hu Liang a warning. The servant did not look at Hu Liang. He only said a few words to the thugs beside him before entering again. As soon as he left, the thugs began to approach Hu Liang step by step. Gu Yundong and his wife did not know what happened after that. As soon as she arrived at South Street, she started shopping crazily. With money in her hands, she did not panic. In addition, she was living in the Zheng family now, so she did not need to be wary of anyone. She bought a few bolts of cloth from the shop and then went to the provision store to buy daily necessities. However, the provision store in the county city was really too small compared to the prefectural city. When she saw the jewelry shop, she went in and bought 2 small gold locks for Gu Yunshu and Gu Yunke. She remembered that the youngest son of the second branch had a small golden lock. Gu Yunshu was very envious when he saw it. Now that she saw it, she would definitely be happy. There was also a silver hairpin for her mother. She was good-looking. After cleaning up, she would be a beauty. With some jewelry, she was simply too pleasing to the eye. In the end, she bought herself a pair of earrings. Yes, if she was rich, she had to show off. After buying the jewelry, she went to buy a lot of food. Thinking of Shao Qingyuan, she paused and went to the blacksmith's shop to get a barbecue rack. She could come over and get it in 5 to 6 days. When the time came, she would make him a barbecue. After buying everything, it was almost evening. Satisfied, Gu Yundong returned to the village in the carriage. Even though it was getting late, the carriage still attracted everyone's attention as soon as it entered the village. Chapter 104:1 Bought it. The driver was Feng Danning. Many people in the village knew that Feng Danning had followed Gu Yundong to the Peng residence this morning. It was all thanks to Jin Yuexiang's publicity. Therefore, when they saw him, everyone could not help but surround him. They even asked him where this carriage came from. Was it from the Peng residence? Before Feng Danning could answer, he was interrupted by Jin Yuexiang, who had rushed over to watch the show. What do you mean the Peng family gave it to him? What are you all thinking? Gu Yundong went to cause trouble for young Master Peng, but the Peng family still gave them a carriage? As he spoke, he even laughed loudly and said maliciously, I think she was beaten to death by the Peng family. Feng Danning hired a carriage to pull her back, right? Everyone took 2 steps back with a whoosh. They widened their eyes and looked at the carriage in fear, as if bright red blood would flow out at any time. Feng Danning felt helpless. Jin Yuexiang was full of nonsense. No matter how domineering the Peng family was, they would not dare to kill someone so blatantly and ask him to pull the corpse back. However, everyone in the village believed it. Even Chen Liang, who had rushed over later, widened his eyes in disbelief. He said bitterly, Did something really happen? Sigh, Danning, why didn't you stop them? You? Before he could finish speaking, Gu Yundong slowly lifted the curtain and smiled at everyone. This carriage was indeed not given by the Peng family. I bought it myself. Whoa! Everyone took a small step back in unison. The smug smile on Jin Yuexiang's face instantly froze. She widened her eyes and looked at Gu Yundong. You're fine? What are you talking about? What can happen to me? Didn't you go and find trouble with the Peng family? Gu Yundong looked innocent. Who did you hear that from? Jin Yuexiang shouted. I heard it with my own ears. It was clearly Feng Danning who said that the blueprint had been taken away by young Master Peng. He didn't even allow you to build a house. You went to the Peng family to ask for an explanation. Oh, so she was eavesdropping. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. Oh, young Master Peng only said that my drawing is very good and wanted to borrow it to take a look. I happened to be going to the county city to buy something today, so I took the drawing back. Why is it that when it comes to you, it becomes me going to the Peng residence to demand an explanation? Do you dare to say this in front of young Master Peng? Feng Danning said righteously, That's right. Yundong wanted to buy a carriage. One happened to be more familiar with it, so she asked me to help her pick one. She could also go to the Peng residence to get the blueprints. Qingyuan, how can you distort the truth and spread rumors everywhere, making everyone panic? Qingyuan was dumbfounded. Did she hear wrongly? The others suddenly understood. So that was the case. If it was really as Qingyuan had said, would Feng Daneng and Gu Yundong be able to return safely? Indeed, they could not trust Big Mouth's words too much. Chen Liang heaved a sigh of relief and turned his attention to the carriage. Did you buy this? Gu Yundong got out of the carriage. I thought that it would be more convenient with a carriage. We won't have to rely on our legs to go to the county next time. Chen Liang nodded. The Gu family was indeed wealthy. The Gu girl. At this moment, someone suddenly called out to her from the side and said enviously, "Your carriage looks very good. This horse looks strong. The carriage is also sturdy and big. In the future, when we go to the county city, it will be convenient, right?" Chapter 105. Hong Gu Yundong looked at the man. He was a middle-aged man. She did not know him, but she did not like to hear him say such things in front of everyone. Hence, she smiled at that person and said, "It's my family's convenience. It has nothing to do with you." That person was stunned. This little girl really didn't know how to conduct herself. He raised his eyebrows. "But we're from the same village. If we need help, you're not even willing to lend your carriage?" "Yes, as long as you pay 20 copper coins per trip to the county." The price was clearly stated, lest everyone wanted to curry favor and take advantage of her. Did she look like someone who was easy to talk to? "You are too black-hearted. We're all from the same village and you're actually charging money?" That person immediately shouted, "Isn't that right, everyone? We'll only pay 3 copper coins each if we take the ox cart to the county." Gu Yundong said, "Oh, so you know that you have to pay for taking someone else's carriage. I thought you didn't know that even biological brothers have to settle accounts clearly. If you think it's too expensive, you can choose not to take it. I bought the carriage for myself, not for you." That person choked. Chen Liang, who was at the side, could not stand it anymore. "All right, one look and you can tell that this carriage is not cheap. There are so many people in the entire village. If everybody takes it, can you let her have some peace? The carriage is not for public use. One think the method of charging money is quite good. If you can afford it, you can take it. If you can't, you can take the ox cart. It's been like this for so many years." "But does the Gu family buy a carriage and your legs are broken?" Gu Yundong silently gave him a thumbs up. If she said it, it was like she was looking down on them. The village chief was the right person to say it. As expected, the people around who wanted to take advantage of him were a little flustered, especially the middle-aged man who had just spoken. He could only lower his head and mutter. At this moment, Gu Yunshu ran over with the Zheng siblings. Eldest sister, you're finally back." Gu Yundong looked down at his flushed face and reached out to rub his head. "Were you obedient at home?" "Yes, I was." As he spoke, he shifted his gaze to the carriage behind her. "Big sister, did you rent a carriage to come back?" Gu Yundong carried him to the shaft of the carriage. "No, this is our family's carriage. Eldest sister bought it today. If you want to go anywhere in the future, you can take this carriage." Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up and his face turned red. His entire body was trembling. "Really? Our carriage?" "Yes, eldest sister will bring you home. Sit properly." Gu Yundong wanted the Zheng siblings to go up too, but the two of them had already run forward. Gu Yundong had no choice but to greet the village chief. "It's getting late. My mother is still waiting for me at home, so 111 go home first." Go back. "It's been a long day." Chen Liang waved his hand and smiled. No matter what, their village finally had its first carriage. As the village chief, he was also proud. Feng Daneng led the carriage inside. There were still many villagers following behind. Although they couldn't take it, they could watch. It was good to feast their eyes. Gu Yundong did not care. When she arrived at the Zheng residence, she carried Gu Yunshu down. The little fellow immediately ran in front of the horse. Feng Daneng stopped him from approaching in case the horse was shocked. Gu Yundong reminded him before entering the house. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered, she stumbled towards Yunke. The little girl's eyes were red, as if she had just cried. Chapter 106. Yunke complains Yundong was stunned. Why are you crying? Who bullied you? It's older brother. The little girl began to complain. Older brother was bad. One also wanted to pick up eldest sister. He didn't even wait for me and ran away. I'm so angry. Yunke was young and malnourished. She would stagger if she walked faster, let alone run. Yunshu did not notice and ran to the village entrance to pick up eldest sister. The little girl was so angry that she stomped her feet twice. 111 Ignore brother from now on. Just as she finished speaking, Yunshu ran in excitedly and said to her, Little sister, eldest sister bought a carriage. It's outside the door. Hurry up and take a look. The little girl's eyes immediately lit up. I want to see, want to see. Then, she naturally held Yunshu's hand and the two of them happily walked out of the courtyard. Yundong, as long as the two of you are happy. She shook her head and stood up to look at Madame Yang and Madame Dong. Madame Yang's eyes were also sparkling. Yundong laughed. If you want to see it, go and see it. But don't get too close to the horse's butt. Madame Yang ran away. Only then did Dong Xiulan walk to her side and exhale softly. It's good that you're fine. Qingyuan came back earlier and said that your matter has been resolved. The Peng family won't find trouble with you. But I'm always worried about you not coming back. Annie Dong, don't worry. If one was not confident that I could solve the problem, one wouldn't have rushed forward rashly. Yundong quite liked Dong Xiulan. You said that Shao Qingyuan is back. Is he next door? I think so. You saw him in the county, didn't you? I did. He even did me a favor. Dong Xiulan immediately smiled. Am I right? Qingyuan is a good child. Yeah. As they were talking, Yunshu came in with a stick of candied hawthorn in his hand. Eldest sister, did you buy this for us? Just now, Uncle Feng said that there were many things to unload in the carriage, so he went to help carry them. He did not expect to see a few red sticks of candied hawthorn as soon as he got in. He was fine, but Yunke had already licked off half of the candy. There should be a few more skewers in the carriage. Give one to Zhengyu and the others each and leave 2 for Uncle Feng to take home. Yunshu ran away again. When Yundong went out, Feng Danning had already unloaded half of the things in the carriage. Beside him, there were people holding a stick of candied hawthorn in one hand and carrying small items on the ground with the other hand into the house. Yundong rubbed her forehead and chased them to the side to eat. She and Madame Dong brought everything back. The Zheng family's courtyard was not big, but they had a pig shed previously. Although they did not raise pigs anymore, they could still let the horse live in it after tidying it up. Feng Danning had wanted Yundong to leave the carriage at his house, but Yundong saw that the children surrounded the carriage and were unwilling to leave, so he gave up. After Feng Danning left, Yundong began to sort out the pile of things he had bought. She bought a lot of cloth. When she saw one of the navy blue cloths, she subconsciously felt that it was very suitable for Shao Qingyuan, so she bought it. Looking at this piece of cloth, she was a little stunned. It was not easy to give it away, right? Forget it, she would think about it later. Just as she was about to put it away, Dong Xiulan came in. Yundong, Qingyuan sent 2 pheasants over earlier. Are we going to cook them tonight? Her gaze landed on the cloth in her hand. This fabric looks good. Is it for Yunshu? Is the color too dark? Chapter 107. Buying field, studying, finding father, treating illness. Yundong suddenly felt a little guilty. However, he quickly adjusted himself and said, It's not for Yunshu. It's for my father. When I bought the cloth, I counted the entire family. Only now do I remember that my father is not around. Dong Xiulan was afraid that she would be sad, so she quickly said, You'll definitely be reunited soon. You even bought so much cloth? If you trust my skills, I'll make a piece of clothes for each of you. That's good. Yundong smiled. Auntie's embroidery skills are good, so it's definitely not a problem for you to make clothes. But I have to make it clear that you have to be paid. One can't take advantage of Auntie. How is this taking advantage? Look at how much good stuff our family has eaten from you since you came. You went to the county city and came back to buy candied hawthorn for Yuer and the others. I'm so grateful. It won't take much effort to make a few sets of clothes. It's settled. With that, Dong Xiulan left without waiting for her to reject. Gu Yundong laughed and shook her head. She did not insist. After tidying up herself, she went to the kitchen to cook the 2 pheasants. They had agreed to make a salt-baked chicken and a spicy chicken for Shao Qingyuan. Dong Xiulan had taken care of the 2 chickens, so Gu Yundong moved much faster. In addition to the 2 chickens, she also bought other vegetables in the county city. When they were done, she asked Gu Yunshu to send them to the neighboring house. After dinner, Gu Yundong sat on the chair and pondered. Now that the blueprints were back, the Peng family would not cause trouble for him. Apart from the money she had to build a house and buy a carriage, she still had about 230 taels of silver. To others, it might seem like a lot, but to Gu Yundong, it was not enough. Not to mention that she did not have a fixed asset like fertile land, she still had to send Gu Yunshu to school, find Gu Dajiang, and treat Madame Yang. These were all money-burning jobs where she could not save money even if she wanted to. She had to buy a few acres of fertile land. She could rent it out even if she didn't know how to grow it. Yunshu's school was not in a hurry. She heard from the village chief that the school in town had to accept students above the age of 6. Yunshu would only be 6 years old after the new year. She could just ask around first. As for Gu Dajiang, after the house was built, she wanted to personally make a trip to Qingyuan Prefecture. Back then, they had agreed to meet in Qingyuan Prefecture. If Gu Dajiang was still alive, he would definitely go. However, after the chaos in Qingyuan Prefecture, it was hard to say what would happen next. In this era, there was no mobile phone network. It was too difficult to find someone. Also, Madame Yang's illness was actually what Gu Yundong was most worried about at the moment. She was afraid that the blood clot in her brain would spread and aggravate her condition. She hoped that Dr. Song would come back soon. Knock knock. A soft knocking sound suddenly came from the window. Gu Yundong jumped up from the bed and immediately walked to the window. Who is it? Me. Shao Qingyuan? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Wait a moment. She came out of the house and saw the man's tall and handsome figure under the moonlight. Damn it, why did it feel like every time they met, it was in the middle of the night? It felt like they were dating in private. The salt-baked chicken and spicy chicken are very delicious. Thank you, Shao Qingyuan said. We agreed that since you helped me, I'll cook delicious food for you. Besides, we ate a lot of the wild animals you hunted. That's why I'm here. I want to ask you for a favor. Gu Yundong was stunned. What favor? Shao Qingyuan bent down and handed over a cloth bag by his feet. Chapter 108. Under the stove only then did Gu Yundong notice that there was something beside his feet. What is this? White flour, Shao Qingyuan said. I'm going to bring that young Master Liu into the mountains tomorrow morning. I promised him that one would go deep into the mountains to kill the tigers. I might only be back in 2 or 3 days, so one have to bring some dry food. The steamed buns and pancakes in town are too disgusting. I want you to help make some. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. Tigers? You're going to fight the tigers? Have you fought them before? I did. Once, when he went deep into the mountains, he encountered an old hunter who was bitten by a tiger and was almost forced into a corner. He was the one who knocked the tiger down. Later on, the old hunter dealt with the tiger and gave him the bulk of the money. But you even brought that useless young Master Liu along this time. Won't he be dragging you down? Gu Yundong frowned. He felt that his decision was very unwise. If he wanted to fight the tiger, it would be easier for him to escape if he encountered danger in the mountains alone. But with such a rich young master, Gu Yundong had a feeling that they were courting death. Shao Qingyuan said. He insisted on following. What a prodigal son who wants to drag others down with him. Gu Yundong regretted that she had only received 50 taels of silver in the day. One think it's better for you to knock him out and throw him into a tree. That's what one planned to do. Gu Yundong was speechless. She could not help but laugh. Seeing that he had already made up his mind, Gu Yundong could not say anything. She took the white flour bag. Wait a moment. 111 make pancakes for you now. In this weather, it won't be a problem to keep them for 2 or 3 days. Later, you can make them hot and eat them. By the way, can you eat spicy food? I'll make you some hot sauce. I'll warm you up. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but smile when he saw her turn around and return to the kitchen. Okay. Gu Yundong's movements were very light. Madame Dong and the rest were sound asleep and were a distance away from the kitchen. Once the door was closed, most of the sound was cut off. Although Shao Qingyuan's culinary skills were not good, he could still start a fire. One of them stood in front of the stove while the other was sitting. The scene was indescribably harmonious. Gu Yundong kneaded the flour and asked about what happened during the day. You were the one who caused Aunt Cui to fall into the water and the dogs to foam at the mouth? Back then, she had asked him to create 2 chaos in the residence in half an hour. It would be best if it was closely related to Peng Zhongfei. Moreover, it was the kind of unlucky thing that made people think that he had done too many bad things and received retribution. As expected, the 2 consecutive incidents made Peng Zhongfei believe her words without a doubt. Xianxia's matter had nothing to do with me. The dog was my doing. Shao Qingyuan originally wanted to light a fire in Peng Zhongfei's study, but before he could do so, he realized that Peng Zhongfei's first wife wanted to deal with his beloved concubine, Madame Cui. Shao Qingyuan watched coldly as his wife and concubines fought. When the servants went to Jinglan Manor to report to Peng Zhongfei, he went to find the ferocious dog. When it saw Shao Qingyuan, the dog bared its fangs at him and wanted to bite him, but he kicked it away. Then this dog foamed at the mouth. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh when she heard that. She was very agile. When Shao Qingyuan asked her how to get the blueprint back, she said what she needed to say. There was nothing to hide from the 2 of them. When all the pancakes were done, Gu Yundong gathered them all and handed them to Shao Qingyuan. Time was limited, so she could only make do with this. Shao Qingyuan was about to leave with the cloth bag containing the hot pancakes and sauce when Gu Yundong suddenly thought of something and hurriedly stopped him. Wait a moment. Chapter 109. Who is Shao Qingyuan? Gu Yundong ran into his room and quickly came out with the crossbow in his hand. I'll lend this to you, she said. But after you defeat the tiger, you'll give me 10% of the silver. It's not that I'm ruthless, but this is good stuff. You've seen it before. It's powerful and life-saving. Shao Qingyuan lowered his head and looked at the crossbow in his hand. His slightly lowered eyes seemed to flash. His fingers tightened slightly. After a moment he looked up. I'll give you 20%. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. This guy was too smart. Only then did Shao Qingyuan leave. However, his back view made him look even taller. Gu Yundong then tidied up the kitchen and went to sleep. The next morning, the entire Yongfu village became noisy again. It wasn't farm time now, and most of the people were chatting outside. Hence, they saw the gorgeous carriage that had sped over early in the morning. Everyone at the village entrance stood up with a whoosh. What's going on? The Gu family bought a carriage yesterday. Who bought it today? As soon as someone finished speaking, he heard the servant driving the carriage ask, Brother, how do we get to Shao Qingyuan's house? Shao Qingyuan? Who is it? There's no such person in our village. Did you find the wrong person? The servant was dumbfounded. What? There was no such person? Isn't this Yongfu village? It's Yongfu village, but there's indeed no one called Shao Qingyuan. Tell me in detail what that person looks like. He might be from the neighboring village. It'll help you ask around. Why ask? Madame Zhou couldn't stand it anymore. She squeezed in with a washing basin and couldn't help but roll her eyes at the group of people. Then, she said to the servant, Why are you looking for Shao Qingyuan? Don't tell me you're looking for trouble? The curtain of the carriage was lifted, revealing Lu Wei's face. He smiled and said to Madame Zhou, I'm looking for him to help me. He's from this village, right? Someone beside him recognized him. Wasn't this the young master behind Madame Fang and her daughter that day? The discussions at the side made Madame Zhou understand. It seemed that they were not looking for trouble. She heaved a sigh of relief and pointed to the left. Shao Qingyuan's house is at the foot of the mountain over there. Go over and you'll see a house under construction. Just go a little further. A villager exclaimed, Isn't that the home of a wolf cub? A wolf cub? That's right, the wolf cub seemed to be called Shao Qing something. This was a habit, and they almost forgot his original name. Lu Wei thanked him and asked the servant to drive the carriage to the Shao family. When everyone saw him leave, they followed behind curiously. Not long after, Lu Wei entered the Shao family's house. The villagers who had followed him here were a little far from his house. They only dared to stand at the entrance of the Zheng family's house and discuss. Shao Qingyuan had been waiting for him since a long time ago. Everything that needed to be prepared had been prepared. When Lu Wei arrived, he didn't even drink any water before he was called into the mountain. Have you brought everything? We have to stay in the mountain for at least 2 days. When Luan, the servant beside him, heard that he would be staying for a few more days, he immediately could not take it anymore. Young master, why you're not coming back on the same day? Don't be silly. We have to go deep into the mountains to hunt tigers. How can we come back in a day? All right, stay in the Shao family obediently and wait for me to come back. Help Shao Qingyuan guard the house. Be smart. When Brother Qin needs help in the room, help him. Don't put on airs. Luan was about to cry, but he could not stop the young master at all. No wonder the young master did not even bring the coachman when he went out in the morning and only let him drive the carriage. Luan wanted to cry but had no tears. He could only watch as the two of them walked further and further away. When Madame Fang and her daughter rushed over after receiving the news, the eldest young master of the Liu family was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 11. Oh, what are you smug about? Madame Fang and her daughter were extremely regretful. Why didn't young Master Liu look for them first when he came? Why did he directly find out that the Shao family was here? The two of them sighed and looked in the direction of the foot of the mountain. When the other villagers saw this, they surrounded them. Previously, they did not dare to approach the Shao family. Now that Shao Qingyuan had left, they naturally wanted to know how young Master Liu met the wolf cub. Why did he let him bring him into the mountain? Speaking of this, Madame Fang and her daughter were a little smug. Madame Fang smiled and said, "It's all thanks to our Yulan that wolf cub knows young Master Liu. Everyone knows that my nephew just got married not long ago. This new wife is young Master Liu's mother, Madame Liu's favored maidservant. The new wife has a good relationship with our Yulan. When she went to the Liu family to see Madame Liu, she brought Yulan along. Yulan heard that young Master Liu is looking for a hunter who killed 2 wild boars not long ago. If he wants to enter the mountains, doesn't he need a familiar hunter? B0XO. Everyone was enlightened. So it was to find a guide. Then you didn't tell young Master Liu about that wolf cub? Why not? But what kind of family is the Liu family? Who is young Master Liu? Why would he be afraid of a wolf cub? Madame Fang said smugly, "My niece-in-law said that young Master Liu knows martial arts. Otherwise, why would he dare to follow the wolf cub into the mountain without bringing anyone? Don't underestimate him." "How much money can that wolf cub get by bringing him into the mountains?" someone asked. Madame Fang really didn't know about this, but it didn't stop her from thinking. Hence, after a pause, Madame Fang stretched out 2 fingers and shook them. "Definitely. 2 taels of silver? Of course. Young Master Liu has always been generous." Speaking of the Liu family, Madame Fang and her daughter really talked non-stop. Madame Zhou's face darkened. She held the wooden basin and snorted. Then, she turned around and went home. Her second daughter-in-law, Madame Song, was also in the crowd. Seeing this, she hurriedly followed and took the wooden basin from her mother-in-law. Madame Zhou walked away quickly. One don't know what's there to be happy about. Is it worth it for her to be so smug when her nephew marries a maidservant who serves others? What is she thinking? She even took it out and spread it around. Don't you know that she's a widow? Look at the men around her. She's simply embarrassing our Chen family. Mother, don't be angry. Second aunt said that after Sister Yulan marries into the Wu family, she will also go to town. We won't see her a lot in the future. Madame Zhou sneered. She still wants to live in town? How much money does she have? If she goes to town, she will need money to buy anything. She might have to borrow from us again. If she borrows it, she won't return it. Besides, look at how petty she was just now. Is young Master Liu being generous by giving him 2 taels of silver? Even the Gu family's Yundong is? She instantly stopped talking. It was not good to say this outside, and it would not be good for others to hear it. However, when she thought of Madame Fang's expression, Madame Zhou felt uncomfortable. The two of them entered the house one after another. Just as they entered, they saw Niu Dan rushing out. Madame Zhou couldn't even stop him. "Hey, where are you going so early in the morning?" Niu Dan was lucky. He had only been in school for a few days, but he had already met a rest day. Where else can one go? Niu Dan had already run far away. Madame Song couldn't help but laugh. He must be going to the Gu family. Last time, after eating at the Gu family, he despised my cooking and said that eating meat was like eating grass. Yesterday, when he came back from school, he rushed to the Gu family. Yunshu even gave him a stick of candied hawthorn. Now, he can't wait to stay in the Gu family. Madame Zhou was stunned for a moment. Just as she was about to say something, a shrill cry suddenly came from outside. Chapter 111. Making the call, this voice suddenly became sharp, startling the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law who were talking. Madame Zhou quickly walked out. "What's going on? What happened?" Chen Liang also came out of the inner room. The few of them came to the front yard and saw Jin Yuexiang sitting on the ground crying. "Village chief, our Liangzi is in trouble. His legs were broken." Chen Liang and the others were shocked. Before they could react, they saw Hu Liang being carried into the courtyard. Hu Liang looked terrible. The smell of blood on his body was extremely strong. His eyes were closed as he fell asleep. Chen Liang quickly took a few steps forward. "What's going on? Who hit him?" Jin Yuexiang immediately pointed to a man who was being held by the Hu brothers. "That's him. Liangzi came back with him." That person struggled angrily but did not break free. His face was ashen as he said, "You guys really don't know what's good for you. I was kind enough to send your son back, but you guys are blackmailing me. Bah, if I had known, I wouldn't have cared about your son's life." Jin Yuexiang got up and rushed over to grab the man's face. "What did you say? Say it again." Chen Liang quickly called his wife and daughter-in-law to stop her. "What are you doing? He hasn't said it clearly. Why did you attack?" Then he looked at the man and asked, "What exactly happened?" The man snorted. "Uncle Chen Liang, I'm Quan from the neighboring village. You should know my father, Jiang Fang. I've been working in the county city recently. This morning, one saw Hu Liang being thrown into the alley with blood all over him. One didn't know what happened, so one brought him back out of kindness. Who knew that when one sent him to the Hu family and wanted to leave, they would invite a doctor while entertain me hypocritically. After the doctor said that he couldn't keep his legs, the Hu family actually didn't let me leave. They even said that I beat Hu Liang up and asked me to compensate. I've never seen such a shameless person. If one had known, I wouldn't have cared about Hu Liang's life at all." Jin Yuexiang shouted, "If it wasn't for you, would you be so kind as to send him back? My Liangzi is so pitiful. Why did he meet such a heartless person like you? You're going to be struck by lightning." Quan gritted his teeth. "The one who's struck by lightning will be your Hu family. You raised a son who only knows how to steal. He deserves this outcome." "Village chief, you heard him. He's admitting that he did it." Madame Zhou and Madame Song could not help but roll their eyes. When did he admit it? Chen Liang could not be bothered with her. He only asked Quan, "Then do you know who beat him up?" Quan immediately fell silent. Chen Liang frowned. Seeing that Jin Yuexiang wanted to make a fuss again, he glared at her. "Go ahead, Quan. One I've asked around." Quan hesitated for a moment before saying, "They said that Hu Liang's legs were broken by the people from the Peng family." As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. Even Jin Yuexiang seemed to have choked. Quan did not mention this at all just now. He only said that they would naturally know when Hu Liang woke up. But how could it be the Peng family? The Peng family had no enmity with their family. What right did they have to break her son's legs? Jin Yuexiang was a person who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Quan was alone. Although she was sad and heartbroken that Liangzi had broken his legs, she still wanted him to compensate her under the instigation of her two sons. However, how would Jin Yuexiang dare to challenge the Peng family? It was at this moment that Gu Yundong entered the village chief's house. Chapter 112. Dream on Gu Yundong was here to buy fertile land from the village chief. Previously, because of Lu Wei's arrival, a large group of people had gathered at the Zheng family's door. After Madame Fang and the others left, Niu Dan ran over to look for Yunshu to play with. She knew that Qin Liang was resting at home, so she asked where there was fertile land to sell. But looking at the situation in the courtyard now, she seemed to have come at the wrong time. "Chief, can I come back later?" Chen Liang nodded at her, and Gu Yundong turned to leave. Jin Yuexiang suddenly reacted and jumped up. She pointed at Gu Yundong and said, "It's her. She must have done it." Speaking of how her son had offended the Peng family, she could only think of Gu Yundong, who had also gone to the Peng family yesterday. Her son's accident was definitely related to this brat. Gu Yundong was dumbfounded. She was just a passerby. What did it have to do with her? Chen Liang also felt that Jin Yuexiang was being unreasonable. "Why did Yundong hit your son? Your family compensated her 5 taels of silver, and Yundong also said that this matter would end here. Jin Yuexiang, you don't like the young lady, so you threw dirty water at her. Can you still be a human?" Jin Yu was extremely furious. "It's her. Village chief, it's really her. Our Liangzi heard that this brat went to settle scores with the Peng family, so he followed her to the county to look for young Master Peng. In the end, he didn't come back. Fai lost his legs when he was sent back this morning. If it wasn't this girl, who did it?" Chen Liang's face darkened when he heard that. "So you're saying that Hu Liang wanted to harm Yundong first?" Jin Yuexiang choked and quickly argued, "Didn't he fail? On the contrary, my Liangzi ended up like this. You're the village chief of Yongfu village. You have to stand up for my Liangzi." "That's right." The Hu brothers looked at each other and said, "Liangzi's life is ruined. He won't be able to support himself in the future. Gu Yundong has to pay 100 taels of silver no matter what." Gu Yundong's lips twitched. "Dream on. Do you want to have a taste of being whipped by me?" The Hu brothers suddenly shut their mouths and did not dare to speak anymore. Although they had not seen Gu Yundong's actions with their own eyes, they had heard a lot, especially about their parents being sent flying with a kick. On the other side, Quan could not stand it anymore. One already said that it was the Peng residents who did it. The Peng residents spread the word that Hu Liang sneaked into the residence and stole something. He was caught red-handed by the servants of the Peng residence, which was why he was beaten up like this. Gu Yundong said, "Did you hear that? If you still think that one hit him, fine. Let's go to the Peng residence and talk about it. Let's see what's going on. Anyway, my family has a carriage, so it's convenient to enter the county city. But let's make it clear. If you accuse me, this won't be something that can be resolved with 5 taels of silver. Think about it clearly." As she spoke, she looked at the Hu brothers. The two of them quickly turned their heads away. It would be easier to blackmail Quan than Gu Yundong. At this moment, Hu Liang finally opened his eyes. He vaguely heard his mother's voice and tilted his head. Jin Yuexiang immediately reacted and rushed up to shout, "Liangzi, Liangzi, how are you? Tell me what happened." When Hu Liang woke up, he was in so much pain that his forehead was covered in sweat. He immediately cried, "Mother, mother, my legs are gone. The Peng family broke my legs." All right, forget about blackmailing Gu Yundong now. Even Quan was no longer an option. Chapter 113, Guilty. As soon as Hu Liang said that, the Hu brothers felt that they were in trouble, but what could they do? The village chief was watching from the side. Madame Zhou and Madame Song pursed their lips secretly. They were very tired of the Hu family. Although they were from the same village, Hu Liang was a cancer in the village. It might be a good thing if his legs were broken. Jin Yuexiang did not know what these people were thinking. When she saw that her old son had woken up and confirmed that it was really the Peng family's doing, she panicked and hurriedly asked, "What happened? What exactly happened? Why did the people from the Peng family break your legs for no reason? Did you really go to their house to steal things? You're stupid. How dare you sneak into the Peng family? What will one do in the future?" As she spoke, she started crying. Hu Liang's body was in pain, and he became even more irritable after she cried. "I'm not dead. Stop howling." Jin Yuexiang was instantly choked and could not speak. Gu Yundong quickly held it in so that her laughter would not agitate his family. Chen Liang felt a headache coming on. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Hu Liang. He asked, "Tell me clearly, why did the Peng family break your legs? What did you do?" Hu Liang gasped in pain as he screamed. Even if the village chief was in front of him, he could not care less about his temper. But how would one know why? I was knocked out after circling the back door of the Peng residence. When one woke up, I was in the Peng residence. Then, those servants of the Peng residence grabbed me and beat me up. They said that I stole something and threw me out after beating me up. That's not all. They even broke my legs later. I didn't do anything at all. Why don't you ask the people of the Peng residence yourself? Chen Liang was so angry that he almost fell backward. However, Jin Yuexiang was still saying, "Village chief, you heard it. You have to stand up for our Liangzi." Chen Liang sneered. Stand up for him? Listen to what he said. There's not a single word of truth. What do you mean by being knocked unconscious and waking up in the Peng residence? What the hell was going on in broad daylight? Stand up for him? How dare you say that when Hu Liang was sneaking around in the past, he didn't think of asking me to stand up for him? Let me tell you, he was caught stealing something. It's already a light punishment to have his legs broken. If you have the ability, bring your 2 sons to the Peng residence and talk to them. Seeing that the village chief had pointed at them, the Hu brothers subconsciously took 2 steps back and said to Jin Yuexiang, "Mother, Liangzi is already like this. In the future, you and father can only rely on us. If the 2 of us offend the Peng family and are beaten up like this, how can our family survive? Besides, Liangzi is in the wrong. How am I in the wrong?" Hu Liang was so agitated that he pulled at his wound. Before he could catch his breath, he fainted again. Chen Liang was impatient, especially when he saw the blood seeping out of Hu Liang's body again. He quickly waved his hand. "All right, quickly carry him back and find a doctor to treat him. Don't you know what kind of person Liangzi is? His brother is right. He was in the wrong in the first place. Why are you making a fuss?" Jin Yuexiang was frightened by her 2 sons' words. Although she doted on her old son, she was still the most important. Her old son was already in such a state. She couldn't possibly have nobody to rely on in the future, right? Moreover, she actually felt that Hu Liang was lying. He must have entered the Peng residence to steal something and was caught red-handed. Since the village chief had already said so, he definitely did not intend to interfere. She could only let her 2 sons carry Hu Liang home. Chapter 114. Madame Zhou sending food. Only then did Chen Liang heave a sigh of relief. He turned around and said to Madame Zhou, Hu Liang was spoiled to this extent by his parents. Every time he did something wrong, they didn't hit, scold, or teach him a lesson. They even protected him and doted on him like their eyeballs. Now, someone else has helped teach his son how to be a human. You guys have to remember not to raise Nyo Dan to be like him. Madame Zhou and Madame Song nodded. Seeing that the matter had been resolved, Ah Quan said goodbye. Chen Liang expressed his apologies for delaying him. Ah Quan was fine with it. The unreasonable Hu family had nothing to do with Chen Liang. As soon as he left, Chen Liang looked at Gu Yundong, who was quietly standing at the side. A smile instantly appeared on his face, and he felt much more relaxed. Yundong, why are you here? I'm here to buy land from Uncle Chen. Yundong followed him to the central room. Chen Liang was stunned. Are you planning to buy farmland? How much do you want? What kind of farmland do you want? I want to buy more than 10 acres first. It's best if it's a first-rate fertile land. She had asked around and found out that 1 acre of fertile land cost about 10 taels of silver. 10 acres was about enough. Chen Liang lowered his head and thought for a moment before saying, That's not easy. You came late. Previously, there were a few acres of fertile land, but it was bought by the Wang family and the He family. The Wang family and the He family had fled here. Although the 2 families had yet to build their houses and did not plan to build them well, they found the land immediately. Gu Yundong did not think of this at first. This was the difference between having experience and not having experience. Chen Liang wanted to remind her, but firstly, the 2 families acted quickly and bought it before Gu Yundong came. Secondly, the Gu family's situation was different. They did not have strong labor and had a few children to take care of. They probably did not have the time. I see. Gu Yundong did not expect that 10 acres of fertile land was not easy to buy. Then Uncle Qin, help me take a look first. Let me know if you have any. I'll prepare the silver first. All right, I'll keep an eye out for you. Gu Yundong thanked her and went home. However, just as she reached the front yard, she was pulled over by Madame Zhou. Gu Yundong blinked in confusion. Madame Zhou took out a paper bag and handed it to her. This is the dried cinnamon that your Uncle Qin bought in town yesterday. Take it back. You can cook it and eat it as snacks. Auntie, what are you doing? I can't accept this. Hurry up and take it back. Gu Yundong was a little dumbfounded. Why did she offer her food for no reason? However, Madame Zhou forced it into her hand. If I give it to you, just take it? I didn't know that Brat Nyo Dan had been coming to your house to freeload for the past 2 days. I heard that he specially went to eat meat. His mother is really something. She only told me today. Take this food back. Otherwise, Aunt will be angry. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before she finally understood. Madame Song lowered her head slightly and smiled. She had actually told Madame Zhou on purpose today. She was a daughter-in-law. Her family could not make the decision, and the good things were not in her hands. Even if they were in her hands, she could not give them away openly. Fortunately, her mother-in-law was sensible and knew that she could not take advantage of others for nothing. Hence, she took out the cinnamon. Madame Song had a good impression of Gu Yundong, especially Nyo Don's happy expression when he came back and talked about the Gu family. If Gu Yunshu had not been playing with Nyo Dan, that brat would not have been willing to study. She heard that he was praised by Master because of Gu Yunshu. Gu Yundong could not refuse her kindness. In the end, she took the cinnamon home. As soon as she arrived at the Zheng family, she saw Madame Fang and her daughter loitering at the foot of the mountain from afar. Chapter 115. Dumbfounded Liu An. Gu Yundong thought of the mother and daughter's enthusiasm for Lu Wei and felt that it was a little painful to the eyes. Could this be a bad idea? She shook her head and turned to enter. As soon as she entered, she heard a commotion coming from the courtyard. She followed the sound and looked over. She saw Yunshu, Yunke, the Zheng siblings, and Nyo Dan standing in front of the horse shed with a small handful of hay in their hands. Lu Wei's manservant, Liu An, stood at the side and made a fuss as he spoke. You can't feed it too much. It won't be able to eat. Hey, Kiki, how many handfuls have you taken? Gu Yunke opened her round eyes and made a 3 gesture with her hand. I've only taken the second one. It's very hungry. Don't talk nonsense. If one didn't eat for the entire night, the next day my stomach gurgles. Liu An vomited blood. You're a human, it's a horse. So, you're bullying it? Gu Yunke was furious. Liu An held onto the pillar of the horse shed at the side. Why was it like this? Why was it like this? He only saw the little girl eating a piece of fragrant oil pancake in her hand and was a little greedy. But why did he have to explain the key points of how to raise a horse to a group of children in the end? He was a page boy, not a groom, and definitely not a nanny. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh, especially after Gu Yunke said that. The other children all looked at Liu An accusingly. Nyo Don's words were even more shocking. I heard that those rich families don't treat horses as humans. You also said that they were horses. Of course, they couldn't be seen as humans. It's different for our family. They treat cows very well and give them all the delicious food. Nyo Don's family had a cow that his father and grandfather treasured. The children nodded and felt that it made sense. Liu An was at a loss for words. How could he prove his love for horses? Gu Yundong coughed lightly and walked forward with a smile. Gu Yunke was still holding the dry grass in her hand. She waved it and ran over. Eldest sister, Liu An bullied our horse. Liu An was speechless. Was she not even going to call him brother now? He was inferior to a horse. Gu Yundong took the hay from her hand and put it aside. She said in a low voice, Liu An is right. Horses have very thin bellies so they can't eat too much. She actually wanted to say stomach, but she was afraid that the children would not understand. When we feed the horses, it's best to cut the hay short, soak it soft or crush it so that the horses can eat happily. Just like Kiki, You can't eat cakes that are too hard and big, right? Yunke nodded, not fully understanding. Eldest sister is right. When you're free, you can even take the horse for a walk. Well, go now. Yunshu also threw away the hay. Eldest sister had said that the horse could not eat too much. Eldest sister was right. Gu Yundong turned to look at Liu An. Thank you. Liu An's eyes widened. He really wasn't a nanny. However, when he thought of what his young master had said before he left, he resigned himself to his fate and left with the children. Then the other children in the village followed. That night, Shao Qingyuan and Lu Wei didn't return. Madame Fang and her daughter waited at the foot of the mountain for a long time. In the end, they could only go home regretfully. However, the next day, the two of them persevered to the foot of the mountain again. This time, they knew how to cover up. They took the basket and pretended to pick wild vegetables. Gu Yundong was still unaware of their actions. When he woke up the next day, it was already a little late. The Dong family had already gone out. She walked slowly to the courtyard. She did not expect to see Gu Yunshu sitting alone in front of the horse shed with his chin on his hand, mumbling something. Chapter 116. Going to town. Gu Yundong was a little surprised and slowly walked behind him. The little thing sighed. Wind chaser, I can't take you out for a walk today. Brother Liu An said that he has something to do in the county city. The Zheng brothers and sisters have gone to the fields. Niu Dan also went to school. Mother went to the river to wash clothes. I can't hold you alone, so I can only talk to you here. Wind Chaser was the name they gave the horse yesterday. At that time, Liu An gave them a bunch of names for the horse, but it was too complicated for the children to understand. In the end, they felt that Wind Chaser sounded very fast, so they decided on it. You have to be good. This way, he'll go and gather grass every day for you to eat. In the future, he'll even marry you and let you give birth to foals. Big sister said that when our house is built, you can still live in a big stable. It's very comfortable. By the way, yesterday, Niu Dan taught me 2 words that I don't know. Do you want to know? You must want to know. After all, my elder sister took a fancy to you. You must be an eager to learn horse. 111 write it for you immediately. As Gu Yunshu spoke, he squatted down and used a branch to draw on the ground. After writing, she tilted her head and read it carefully. After wiping it off, she wrote again. Gu Yundong watched from behind him for a long time. When she saw her small figure squatting on the ground alone, she secretly sighed. Yunshu had only been in Yongfu village for a short period of time. Now, the only good friends she had were Niu Dan and Zheng Lu. Niu Dan was going to school. Although Zheng Lu was young, he still had to work every day. Early this morning, he went to the fields with his brother and sister. Actually, Yunshu had to work in the old Gu family in the past. Seeing Zheng Lu busy himself, he wanted to follow. But how could Madame Dong let him do things for her? She stopped him and let him rest at home no matter what. She even fed the chickens in the backyard in advance and cleaned the courtyard. Gu Yundong wondered if she should let Yunshu go to school. This child liked to study very much and was very intelligent. Even if the school in town only accepted children over the age of 6, Yunshu had basic talent and was only a few months older. Perhaps the teacher could make an exception and accept her? Their house had not been built yet. They did not have poultry, fields, or vegetables. There was a limit to the work they could do. They could try going to the school in town. At the thought of this, Gu Yundong went forward and patted him on the shoulder. Why are you mumbling here alone? Gu Yunshu suddenly turned around. When he saw eldest sister, he hurriedly threw away the branch in his hand and stood up. Elder sister, I'm talking to Wind Chaser. What are you saying? He said that brother Liu An isn't around, so I can't take him out for a walk. Gu Yundong smiled. What's the big deal? We'll go to town later. Isn't it just nice to take a walk? Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up. To town? Yes, we'll leave when mother comes back. Where's Kiki? She's eating in the kitchen. Gu Yunshu sighed. Eldest sister, you really have to talk to her properly. If she continues to eat like this, she'll really become fat. She eats meat early in the morning. It's such a big bowl. As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Yunke rushed out of the kitchen and pushed him twice. Stupid brother, baddie, I'll bite you. Gu Yundong picked her up and shook her. Yes, the young lady was a little heavier than before, but it was not that serious. Compared to those children who were excessively fed and clothed, she still failed. All right, go back to your room and change first. When the two children came out after changing, Madame Yang had also returned. Chapter 117. 2 schools. After following Madame Dong to the river a few times, Madame Yang could go alone now. This was at the foot of the mountain. The laundry place was a little far from the other women in the village, so she would not meet many people. Madame Yang was also at ease. After drying her clothes, Madame Yang immediately went to change her clothes happily. The family set up the carriage. Gu Yundong asked Yunshu to inform Zheng Hu next door so that Madame Dong would not be anxious if she could not find them. Then she got into the carriage and set off for town. Although they had all taken a carriage before, the carriage from before was rented. Now that it was their own, the feeling was definitely different. Along the way, other than Gu Yundong, who was driving the carriage outside, the other 3 were all excited. It took 2 hours to walk to town. It was much faster to take a carriage. They arrived in less than an hour. Although Gu Yundong had been to the county city a few times, it was her first time in town. This place was naturally not as prosperous as the county city, but it was also very lively. Gu Yundong first inquired about the place where the carriage could be stored. When she came out of the carriage, she also asked about the school in town. There were a total of 2 schools in town. One of them was where Nyo Dan was. The teachers were a scholar in his 40s and his son. His son usually enlightened students who had just entered the school. The students of the scholar were slightly older. There was another school that was bigger than this first school. There were 2 scholars teaching. However, the difference was that this school accepted students based on money. Not to mention the problem of tuition, even the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone had to be bought by the school. Anyone who had brains would know that there would definitely be a lot of commission in between. Therefore, ordinary people could not afford to attend this school. Most of them were from families with good backgrounds in town. Gu Yundong had never considered a second school from the beginning. Even the teachers in this school were like this. The atmosphere was too bad. Hence, after asking for the address of the first school, she brought the 3 of them to the door. Yunshu didn't know at first. He just followed his sister and took a look at the town's environment. He only turned to look at Gu Yundong in surprise when he stood in front of a school called Wenemo Hall. Elder sister, why are we here? He remembered that Nyo Dan went to school here. Gu Yundong squeezed his small hand. One brought you here to take a look. But you don't want to come? Gu Yunshu was stunned, but his watery eyes seemed to glow. He wanted to come, of course he wanted to come. Nyo Dan had told him a lot about the school. He didn't know how much he yearned for it, but his family was poor. He heard that all the money was spent on the house and the carriage. Studying cost a lot of money. He didn't want to add to his sister's burden. Gu Yunshu pursed his lips and made up his mind. Just as he was about to say that he did not want to come, he looked up and realized that his eldest sister had already gone forward to speak to the concierge. After a while, she came back and led them through the door. This place was not big. According to Nyo Dan, they had 2 classes. One was a preparation class, and they were all children of his age. The other class was on the other side. Those students were all above the age of 10 and were prepared for the scientific examination. Gu Yundong led the 3 of them all the way there. They could hear the students from the preparation class reading. They could vaguely hear Nyo Dan's voice mixed in. When they were about to reach the central room, they suddenly heard a stern voice coming from the corner. What did one tell you? Look at what you did. Did you listen to the master? Chapter 118. Teacher Gu Yundong stopped in his tracks. Gu Yunke grabbed her hand nervously. The voice from the corner was still there. At this moment, another thin and childish voice sounded. Teacher, I just want to help my family do some work. My family is in trouble now. Father injured his hand, so the work in the field is slow. One think, what are you thinking? The teacher interrupted him sternly. I told you long ago that we are scholars. The hands of scholars hold pens and write. Look at how rough your hands are now. If you use your hands to flip through books, you can cut the pages. Gu Yundong frowned. What was this guy saying? However, the master seemed to get angrier as he spoke. If your family is in trouble, won't other families be in trouble? If you lack money, you can borrow it from the master. Why are you going to the fields? If you want to help your family, you can go and copy books. Will the master stop you? The student lowered his voice even more. There are too many students copying books in town. My handwriting isn't good. The price given by the bookstore owner is too low. What's the reason for your poor handwriting? It's because you took your hands, which should have been holding a pen, to pick up a hoe. You're a scholar. A scholar should do his job. Have you completed the homework I set up every day? You still have the mood to go to the fields. It seems that you've read too little. Master, all right. I don't want to hear it from you. This matter will only happen once. There won't be a next time. Study hard and don't worry about anything else. You're very talented in studying. I believe that you'll definitely be able to pass the Tongsheng exam next year. All right, go back. The student did not say anything else and walked out with his head lowered. He did not seem to be in a good mood. The teacher also came out. When he saw Gu Yundong and his family, he was slightly stunned. Then, his expression turned ugly. After the student left, he looked at the gatekeeper. What's going on? Who are they? Why are they brought here? Master, this family's surname is Gu. They want to send their children to school. The teacher glanced at them and quickly looked away. He frowned and said, Where are the men in the family? Didn't one tell you long ago that if there are women coming over, they will be brought to the madam's place? You ignored my words. If word gets out that this woman and I are alone in the same room, won't my reputation be ruined? Gu Yundong was speechless. She did not know if she should say anything. The gatekeeper hurriedly explained, This Miss Gu is the only one in the Gu family who can make decisions. Her father is not around. Madam left early in the morning, so I brought her in. The children of the Gu family know how to read, so old master can teach them. Since when is it your turn to tell old master what to do? So what if they know how to read? Even if they know how to read, you can't bring them to old master. Madam isn't here today, so let them come another day. With that, the teacher flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. He did not even speak to Gu Yundong and the others. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched violently. The gatekeeper was also depressed. He had only brought them in after receiving a few copper coins. He did not expect the old master to reprimand him. The smile on his face immediately disappeared. He said to the few of them in a low mood, You heard it too. Let's go. Come back another day. One told you long ago that the women are all entertained by the madam. Gu Yundong exhaled slowly. She held Gu Yong's hand and left. Madam Yang and Gu Yunshu hurriedly followed. Unexpectedly, as soon as they walked out of the door, two women came up to them. One of them looked a little familiar. Chapter 119. Not here. Gu Yundong took a few more glances at the woman and remembered. Wasn't this the in-law she had seen at Madame Fang's house? It seemed like her surname was Wu. According to Madame Fang, the family that was engaged to Qingyuan was indeed from town. Gu Yundong did not like Madame Fang and had an average impression of Auntie Wu. Hence, even if she recognized her, she pretended not to know her and walked past the two of them. Unexpectedly, the gatekeeper suddenly said, Miss Gu, this is our madam. He pointed at another woman beside Auntie Wu and said, You can tell madam about your brother going to school first. Gu Yundong smiled. There's no need. We still have something to do, so we'll leave first. She nodded at the teacher's wife and led the family out of Wanemo Hall. The lady was stunned and asked the concierge, What's going on? The concierge explained their intentions. Madam frowned and did not say anything. However, just as he turned to leave, she saw Madame Wu looking at Gu Yundong's back thoughtfully. She could not help but ask curiously, Why? Do you know him? Madame Wu came back to her senses and said with a smile, I've met her once. She fled here a while ago and settled down in Yongfu village. This family is not a good family. I heard that they like to take advantage of others and don't know what's good for them. You have to be careful. If such a family enters this school, I'm afraid your teacher will fall for her tricks. The madam's expression changed slightly. She knew her master's personality. He was pedantic and inflexible. Wouldn't he be at a disadvantage when he met someone scheming? After some thought, she instructed the concierge, if you encounter that family again in the future, don't let them in. Not everyone is accepted in our school. Character is very important. Got it. Gu Yundong could still feel Madame was gaze from afar. They had only met once, so she did not know why she was sizing her up. She secretly shook her head. When she saw Gu Yunshu lowering his head and looking depressed, she could not help but reach out and rub his head. What's wrong? Eldest sister. Gu Yunshu pursed his lips and looked up at her again and again. After a while, he seemed to have made up his mind. One don't want to go to school anymore. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. Why not? I heard what the teacher said. He doesn't allow students to work in the fields, but I'm the only man in our family. One have a lot of responsibilities. I want to work in the fields. One also have to do the work at home in the future. Gu Yunshu looked up and said very firmly. Gu Yundong was stunned. Looking at his tense little face, she felt her heart soften. She squatted down and looked at him at eye level. She smiled and said, okay, then we won't study here. Gu Yunshu nodded and blamed herself. Eldest sister, one know that I was too willful. You clearly worked so hard to let me go to school. Not only did you ask Nyo Dan about the school, but you also bought a carriage to transport me. You even personally came all the way to the school to look for the teacher. In the end, the teacher even scolded you. One let eldest sister down. I'm a bad person. Gu Yundong was speechless. Baby, although one know you can find all kinds of excuses for eldest sister's actions, isn't this a little too much? It's true that I asked Nyo Dan about the school for you. But buying a carriage was really just for my convenience. Moreover, it's not a long journey from Yongfu village to town. Chapter 120. Too disappointed Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yunshu, eldest sister approves of you not attending this school not because you are too willful, but because eldest sister feels that this teacher is too pedantic and completely contradicts eldest sister's views. Gu Yunshu tilted his head. Huh? In the past, father said that one has to pass many examinations to become a preparation scholar, an elementary scholar, a high scholar, and an honorable scholar. Every time they take an examination, they have to stay in a narrow shed for a day or even a few days. In such an environment, not to mention a weak scholar, even a strong man might not be able to last. Look at that teacher. Isn't he so fair and thin that he looks like he would collapse at the slightest breeze? His thoughts are simply misleading. The imperial court even sets up a field leave every May to encourage students to go home and cut wheat. Why is it that in the eyes of that teacher, field work is something that students shouldn't do? She even suspected that the teacher was still a scholar because he was not feeling well in the examination hall. Moreover, the expression on the master's face when he was with a woman was as if she had tainted his innocence. It was simply blinding. Did he think that he was in high demand? She did not think that the teacher was a bad person. From what he said, if the student's family was in trouble, he would help. It was just that she did not agree with the teacher's views. It was better to find a suitable teacher. Gu Yunshu felt that what eldest sister said made sense. So that teacher is wrong. Gu Yundong pinched his face. Let's not think about Mo Hall. Let's go to another school. Gu Yunshu was about to leave when he heard this and immediately stopped in his tracks. But didn't you say that the school fees are very expensive? This is all hearsay. Eldest sister thinks that it's impossible to judge a school without taking a look personally. For example, Mo Hall. Previously, she had heard the village chief brag about it. It was good in every aspect. Now that she saw the teacher, she felt that rumors were indeed terrifying. Gu Yunshu nodded and followed her obediently. But the result was not satisfactory. Gu Yundong had just spoken a few words with the concierge when the other party asked for a tael of silver first. Later on, they happened to see a teacher who came out. His disdainful expression made people want to hit him. When the teacher saw that they were dressed averagely, he even asked the gatekeeper to chase them away. She would not come to such a lousy school even if it was free. Gu Yundong tried her best to restrain herself from beating him up and left with the three of them. Gu Yunshu sighed faintly and slowly shook his head. I'm simply too disappointed in them. Gu Yundong, who had been holding his breath, was amused by his words. You're so worried at such a young age. It's not like there are only those teachers in this world. If there's no one in town, let's go to the county city. Why are you disappointed? To the county? Yes. Gu Yundong's first choice was the town because it was close and convenient for transportation. Gu Yunshu was young, so it was not a problem for him to be enlightened in the town. He could also go to the county when he was a little older. From the looks of it, she should know more about the schools in the county. Gu Yunshu was extremely distressed. The tuition fees in the county must be very expensive. Both of them were deep in thought. After taking a few steps, they realized that there seemed to be two people missing behind them. Where were her mother and sister? Chapter 121. Returning to the village. Gu Yundong's eyebrows twitched. She quickly turned around to look for it and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they were only 3 meters away and were not lost. She held Gu Yunshu's hand and turned back. She saw the two of them staring at a stall selling pears. Madame Yang swallowed and whispered, I'm not hungry. Gu Yunke sniffed hard. I just want to smell it. One don't want to eat it. As the two of them spoke, they carefully moved their feet, wanting to leave the fruit stall. However, they did not succeed. After moving for a long time, they only managed to move 1/2 meter. On the other hand, the old man selling pears was doing his best to persuade the customers to stay. These pears are very crispy and have a lot of juice. They're sweet and delicious. Why don't you buy 2 for the children? They're not expensive. They're all planted by my family. 1 copper coin for each. Gu Yundong had already walked up to her. Seeing this, she could not help but rub her forehead. She had fruits in her spatial storage, but other than the few apples she took out last time, she did not take any out. One reason was that it was inconvenient to live in someone else's house. The other reason was that there were few fruits here. Coupled with the season, there were even fewer ripe fruits now. Just like apples, they couldn't even be bought in the county. The pears looked good. She looked at the stall in front of her and gave the stall owner 30 copper coins. She picked 30 pears. The old man's eyes lit up. He even gave her 2 more for free. Gu Yundong wiped them with a handkerchief and gave them 1 each. Madame Yang happily took a bite. But Gu Yunke frowned and looked up at Gu Yundong. She said seriously, I'm just smelling it. I don't want to buy it. She was sensible. Gu Yundong also nodded seriously. Yes, eldest sister wants to buy it. But let's agree that you're not allowed to stop while walking next time. Even if you want to smell it, you have to tell eldest sister first, understand? Otherwise, if eldest sister didn't notice, you and mother will be lost. Next time, she would hold the young lad's hand and let Gu Yunshu hold Madame Yang's hand. Gu Yunke nodded. Okay, I'll be obedient. Let's eat. Only then did the little girl bite hard, so sweet that her eyes narrowed. Gu Yundong saw that it was getting late and she had finished asking about the school. She ate a bowl of noodles at the noodle stall and brought her family back to Yongfu village. Gu Yunshu got into the carriage and remembered something. Eldest sister, Nyo Dan is still in Wenemo Hall. If the teacher teaches him wrongly, will it be bad for Nyo Dan? One have to tell Nyo Dan. Gu Yundong was stunned. This matter, she thought for a moment. Don't say any more. I'll talk to the village chief later. However, she felt that nothing would change. She did not agree with the teacher's concept, but most people in this era might still think that he was right. They felt that since they were studying, they should focus on one goal and not be distracted by anything else. Especially in the countryside, where their knowledge was limited, they felt that students should focus all their energy on studying. Going to the fields? We have parents and grandparents at home. We don't need you. Gu Yundong shook her head and drove the carriage back to Yongfu village. Madame Dong was at home, holding the cloth that Gu Yundong had brought over and making clothes for them. Seeing them enter, she quickly stood up and helped lead the carriage into the courtyard. After she tied the reins, she whispered to Gu Yundong, You didn't know that the Hu family was up to no good again after you left today. Because Hu Liang always caused trouble for Gu Yundong, Madame Dong could not help but pay more attention to the Hu family. Fortunately, he wasn't looking for trouble with her this time. Chapter 122. books in the space. Gu Yundong took out the pears and asked as she walked to the kitchen, "What happened to the Hu family?" This morning, Hu Liang woke up and shouted. Later, for some reason, he suddenly said that Zhuangzi had also been to the county city. Moreover, Hu Liang had a fight with Zhuangzi before he was knocked out. Dong Xiulan sighed. Jin Yuexiang went to Zhuangzi's house and insisted that Zhuangzi had harmed Hu Liang and wanted him to compensate. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. The Hu family must be crazy to want to extort money from everyone. They said that Zhuangzi knocked Hu Liang unconscious. Where was the evidence? They opened their mouths and bit him. How could Zhuangzi's family be willing? Zhuangzi rushed up to hit the Hu brothers at that time. If Zhuangzi's sister, Lan Huaner, hadn't cleverly gone to look for the village chief, who knows what would have happened? Gu Yundong sympathized with the village chief. Then what happened next? The village chief was also angry. There's no end to their nonsense. He told the Hu family not to cause trouble. It was the Peng family who broke Hu Liang's leg. If you have the ability, go to the Peng family. If you continue to accuse others, you'll chase the Hu family out of the village. The Hu family was shocked and returned home dejectedly. However, this time, the Hu family and Zhuangzi's family had completely fallen out. Dong Xiulan didn't know what the others were thinking, but she felt that this was good. Hu Liang's leg was broken, so let's see if he still dared to do bad things everywhere. Without him taking the lead, Zhuangzi and the other two also knew their place. Gu Yundong treated the Hu family's matter as a joke. She went into the kitchen, washed a few pears, cut them, and asked Dong Xiulan to bring them out for everyone to eat. Then, she carried the remaining pears into her room. She asked them not to disturb her and sat on the edge of the bed. She calmed down and began to search her spatial storage. Gu Yundong vaguely remembered that there were a few books in her spatial storage about planting fruit trees. During the apocalypse, everyone was focused on collecting supplies for food and clothing. Books were thrown aside and ignored. It was the same for Gu Yundong back then. As long as she had food and clothes, she could not care about anything else. Later on, when she was hiding in a small bookstore to avoid zombies, a teammate beside her sighed and said, "If one day, the apocalypse really ends, but these books are destroyed, won't a lot of knowledge be cut off?" As soon as he finished speaking, the zombies came in. In a moment of desperation, Gu Yundong only had time to scoop up the pile of books beside her into her space. Because of her teammates' words, Gu Yundong no longer only collected food and clothes. Occasionally, she would collect things that were not often used. After that, in order to survive, Gu Yundong did not carefully read these books. When she saw the old man selling pears today, Gu Yundong suddenly had the idea of planting fruit trees. There were not many types of fruits here. The prices were not low but ridiculously high. For example, the apples she had seen in the prefectural city. Moreover, fruits were not easy to preserve. The pears she bought today had actually been plucked from the tree for some time. Some of its skin was a little wrinkled. However, she had a spatial storage. Time stopped inside. Even if she kept the fruits for a year or two, they would still be fresh. When it was not easy to sell the fruits in the county city, she could sell them to the prefectural city and further away. Even if she couldn't sell them, she could still make easy-to-storage food like jam and dried fruits. Coincidentally, she knew how to do all of this. To her, the most difficult part was actually the first step, planting fruit trees. Chapter 123. Determined Madame Fang and her daughter found it. Soil and protection issues, and fruit tree cultivation techniques. After reading 2 thick books, Gu Yundong felt that it was almost the new year. Moreover, it was definitely not possible to rely on just 2 books. She had to find someone who had grown fruits to discuss it. She could still give it a try. However, fruit trees could not mature in a short period of time. It was quite short for them to bear fruits in a year. Before that, she could only go elsewhere to buy seasonal fruits. Gu Yundong put the book back into her spatial storage. This time, she specially found a corner so that it would be easier to look for fruits again. Then, she picked up the bag of pears again and left. She had to test something and see if there was a market. However, when she went out, she realized that it was already very late. Dong Xiulan was already cooking dinner in the kitchen. She paused. One guess will have to wait until tomorrow. Gu Yundong decided to prepare the things first. She found 2 pieces of bamboo in the courtyard and started to peel them with a knife. It did not take long for it to be cut into more than 10 small wooden sticks. Gu Yunshu saw it and hurriedly ran over to ask, "Eldest sister, why are you cutting the wooden sticks?" "You'll know tomorrow." Not only did Gu Yundong cut the wooden sticks, but she also dug out many molds of various shapes. This time, even Gu Yunke and the Zheng siblings were extremely curious. They gathered around her and watched seriously. When Gu Yundong was done, she realized that there was a circle of children around her, including Madame Yang. She laughed and put the things away. "What are you all doing? Auntie is busy in the kitchen. Aren't you going to help?" The children instantly dispersed. After dinner, the sky turned dark. Shao Qingyuan and Lu Wei still hadn't returned. Lu An had returned from the county city, but he looked listless and uncomfortable. Gu Yundong guessed that he might have been scolded. Madame Fang and her daughter picked wild vegetables for another day and returned empty-handed. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh, but she had clearly underestimated the stubbornness of the mother and daughter. The next morning, when she went out to the homestead to look at the house that was being built, she saw them at the foot of the mountain again. Gu Yundong was speechless. "Did the 2 of you pluck all the wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain?" Feng Danning was beside her, looking energetic. "At this rate, we'll be able to set up the beam soon. When you're free, go to 6th grandfather's place and ask him to pick a good day for you." The start date of construction was chosen by 6th master. He was considered the most senior elder in Yongfu village now. Gu Yundong nodded as he walked into the house. "Can one dig a well in this house? After you told me 2 days ago, one got someone to take a look. The front yard won't do. But there's a spring in the backyard that can be dug out. Shall one show you?" "Okay." Feng Danning brought her to the backyard. There was a place surrounded by wooden planks, probably to mark it. "This is it." Gu Yundong looked at the location. It was actually not very good. However, it was better to have a spring than nothing. There was no need to specially get water from the well. It was much more convenient to cook and wash clothes. After looking at the house, Gu Yundong returned to the Zheng family. There was no one in the courtyard, so the children followed Lu An to walk the horses. Madame Dong was brewing medicine in the kitchen. When she saw her return, she carried the medicine jar to the next room to see Zheng Hu. Gu Yundong thought of the things she had prepared yesterday and immediately ran to his room. She took out the pears and wooden sticks and went straight to the kitchen. She washed a few pears, peeled them, and cut them into pieces. Then she used gauze to squeeze out the juice. Chapter 124. Shao Qingyuan is back. It was a pity that she did not have a juicer. Otherwise, she would not be so tired. After squeezing the pears dry and filtering them twice until there was no residue left, she placed them aside as a backup. Then she started a fire and took out rock sugar and malt sugar. Add pear juice and rock sugar to the pot. Boil it and add a certain amount of malt sugar. The temperature had to be very high. Gu Yundong's forehead was already drenched in sweat. After boiling it for a long time and seeing that it was about time, she slowly poured it into the mold she had made last night. Afraid that she would not be able to take it out if it stuck, she specially applied a thin layer of oil paper under the mold. Then she took out a small wooden stick. This wooden stick had been cut extremely thin by her, and it was not much different from the kind of wooden stick used for lollipops. When everything was done, there was a chatter at the door. Then, Gu Yunke's childish voice could be heard. "It smells so good. Eldest sister made food." After saying that, she ran towards the kitchen and quickly saw the candy on the table. The little girl's eyes lit up. "Big sister, what is this?" "Fruit candy," Gu Yundong said with a smile. She stopped her small figure. "You can't eat it yet. Wait until it's cold and solid." Actually, it was best to put it in the fridge for a few hours, but the conditions here did not allow it. However, the temperature was low now, so they did not have to wait too long. Gu Yunke clicked her tongue and looked at her eagerly. "Then I'll help eldest sister keep an eye on her." "Alright, just watch." The young lady insisted on torturing herself, so Gu Yundong had no choice. But she was very obedient. If she said she would not eat it, she would not eat it. Gu Yundong was very assured. After a while, The other children came in. Even Liu An sniffed as he walked to the kitchen. What's that smell? It's sweet. Candy, Yunke said. When she saw Liu An reaching out to take it, she immediately glared at him angrily. Eldest sister said that you can't eat it yet. I'm just looking. Liu An defended himself. The little girl put her hands on her hips. You're clumsy. You can't touch it. Liu An felt that he had been discriminated against by the little girl. He wanted to defend himself, but Gu Yunshu and the Zheng siblings were already standing on the side with the little girl, guarding against him. Liu An was speechless. After all, he was the young master's servant. Why did they act like he had never seen the world? Gu Yundong had already left the kitchen. She took off her apron and went to Sixth Master's house. Since she was free today, she decided to pick a date first. She still had to make a trip to the county tomorrow. Sixth grandfather's house was not far from the village chief's house. He was already 78 years old. In this era, there were very few people with a high lifespan. Everyone said that sixth great-grandfather was blessed and that his children were filial. Now, he was also respected in the village. Sixth grandfather knew that it was inconvenient for them to live in someone else's house now, so they were in a hurry to move into the new house. Therefore, when choosing a date, he tried his best to choose the nearest one. Gu Yundong took the date and thanked him. She left a bag of soft pastries for Sixth Master before leaving happily. Unexpectedly, as soon as she went out, she saw Madame Fang and her daughter walking home. Beside them was Madame Zhou, whose expression was very ugly. Gu Yundong had sharp ears and eyes. She could vaguely hear Madame Zhou's dissatisfied voice. It's not like we don't have vegetables at home. Even if you want to eat wild vegetables, you can go alone. Why do you have to surround the foot of the mountain all day? Your chickens have all run out, and the pigs are so hungry that they keep crying. But don't you want to live a good life? Gu Yundong suppressed his laughter and strode back. Unexpectedly, she heard Lu Wei's exaggerated voice the moment she reached the Zheng family's door. Madame Fang and her daughter were too lucky. They had just left, but Shao Qingyuan and Lu Wei were already back. Chapter 125. Inquiring about something, Gu Yundong could not help but quicken his pace. The Zheng family's door opened, revealing Madame Dong's anxious expression. Yundong, you're back? What happened? Madame Dong sighed. Qingyuan was injured. They'll bring him some medicine. Injured? Gu Yundong turned around and followed Madame Dong into Shao Qingyuan's house. As soon as she entered, Gu Yundong could not help but widen her eyes and gasp. It seemed like they had gained a lot in the mountains these past few days. Not only were there wild chickens and rabbits in the courtyard, but there were also 2 silly roe deers and a tiger. They had really caught a tiger. Could Shao Qingyuan have been seriously injured by such a big tiger? Gu Yundong retracted his gaze and hurried into the inner room. Auntie, if he's injured, you should find a doctor. She stopped mid-sentence and met Shao Qingyuan's clear eyes. After not seeing each other for a few days, Shao Qingyuan seemed to have lost a lot of weight. His clothes were tattered and he looked a little disheveled. However, his eyes were still as bright as before. No, it felt more aggressive than before. Aggressive. Gu Yundong blinked. When she looked again, Shao Qingyuan's eyes had become cold and indifferent again. Had she seen wrongly just now? Before she had time to think about it, Lu Wei's chattering voice had already sounded. I also asked him to see a doctor. I know Dr. Zhou from the county city's Onren clinic. He's skilled in medicine and will definitely be able to heal you. Don't force yourself. I know it's my fault this time. If it weren't for saving me, you wouldn't have been injured. I promise that next time, 111 obediently stay on the tree and won't come down again. There won't be a next time. Shao Qingyuan glanced at him. Lu Wei choked for a moment and waved his hand after a while. We'll talk about this later. Let's go see a doctor first. It's just a small injury. There's no need. Only then did Gu Yundong see clearly where Shao Qingyuan was injured. There was blood on his shoulder, but fortunately, it did not look very deep. Looking at him standing there in high spirits, his life was definitely not in danger. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Shao Qingyuan glanced at her discreetly and smiled. He said to Lu Wei, go boil water. 111 Go back to my room to apply the medicine. This wasn't the first time Qingyuan had been injured. His family had prepared trauma medicine. The medicine that Madame Dong had brought was for Zhenghu. It was useless to him. Seeing that he couldn't persuade him, Lu Wei felt a little vexed and guilty. He sighed and shouted at Lu An, "Have you boiled the hot water? Your young master stinks." Gu Yundong had wanted to walk to his side and ask about the situation when they entered the mountain, but she immediately took a step back when she heard this. "Lu Wei, you're too obvious, aren't you? You actually dare to despise my peerless handsomeness?" He snorted and deliberately walked towards Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong picked up a stick and pointed it at him. "Stop, stop. Talk from this distance." Lu Wei was so angry that his nose was crooked. Fortunately, Lu An ran over at this moment to let him take a shower. Seeing this, Gu Yundong returned to the Zheng family with Dong Xiulan. When they were done packing, Gu Yundong came over. Shao Qingyuan was still wearing the same tattered coat. Gu Yundong frowned. He and Lu Wei were both eating porridge while Lu An was preparing the horse. It seemed like they would be leaving soon. Gu Yundong immediately sat at the side and asked Lu Wei, "One want to ask you something." Chapter 126. Who is Brother Qin? You want to ask me for something? Lu Wei glanced at her, then turned around with the bowl of porridge in his hand with his back facing her. Back then, you were full of disdain for me. Now, you want to ask me questions just like that? Are we very close? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. So be it. She turned her head and spoke to Shao Qingyuan. There's a lot of prey. How you plan to deal with them? Shao Qingyuan put down the bowl and said, "Leave these pheasants and wild ducks at home to eat. Pack them up and keep them. Young Master Lu bought that big worm. As for the 2 roe deers, one is for young Master Lu to bring back and the other is for us to keep at home." Great. It just so happens that I haven't eaten roe deer meat before. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. Now, Shao Qingyuan's food was brought over by the Zheng family. When he said that he keep the meat at home to eat, he actually meant that he would stay at the Zheng family's house and eat together. However, before he could finish speaking, Lu Wei suddenly turned around and almost threw out the porridge in his hand. "No, you have to give me both the roe deers. I specially followed you into the mountains to hunt for that roe deer. I prepared that for Brother Qin." Gu Yundong was still talking to Shao Qingyuan. "How much money did you sell the tiger for? Let me tell you, this thing is full of treasures and is very valuable. It's not cheap to sell. Don't be cheated by young Master Lu." Shao Qingyuan smiled and nodded. "This tiger skin is incomplete. There are several wounds on its body, and its fur color is not very pure. The price is a little low. The tiger bone and whip were sold according to the purchase price of the pharmacy. In addition, there's tiger meat. Did the 2 of you hear me?" Lu Wei suddenly placed the bowl on the table. "We're talking about the roe deer. One said that I want both roe deers. Also, Gu Yundong, what kind of person do you think 1 am? Would one go and cheat Shao Qingyuan? He saved me. Am one that kind of ungrateful person? Who is Brother Qin?" Gu Yundong suddenly asked. Lu Wei subconsciously replied, "Brother Qin is an impressive figure. He was a scholar at 3 years old and a martial artist at 5 years old. He knows everything in the world. He's also the youngest top scholar in this dynasty. When he was 18 years old, he was appointed as the top scholar by the late emperor." Lu Wei suddenly shut up and snorted. "Why are you asking this?" Gu Yundong said, "I'm just curious. Seeing that you value Brother Qin so much and insist on keeping both roe deers for him, he should be an impressive person. Listening to you, it's true. I didn't expect young Master Lu to know such a person. Of course, we're very close. Although Brother Qin might not remember him, he was definitely going to call him Brother Qin. Since he's the top scholar, shouldn't he be an official in the capital? Young Master Lu, are you sending the roe deers to the capital?" Lu Wei shook his head. "He's not an official in the capital. He's in Fengkai County now." "In Fengkai County? Before?" Lu Wei stopped halfway and snorted again. "Why are you asking so many questions? Anyway, it has nothing to do with you. By the way, didn't you say that you wanted to ask me about something? What is it? Ask me." I'll tell you what one know. Gu Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Are you a pig? Why do you keep snorting? However, seeing that it was getting late, Lu Wei and the others should be leaving in a while. Anyway, he was no longer as awkward as before. I want to ask about the school in the county. However, Lu Wei suddenly stood up and knocked over the stool behind him. Chapter 127. School is settled. Gu Yundong was shocked by him. She looked up and saw his furious expression. One was wondering why you kept asking me about Brother Qin. It turns out that you're waiting here. You also want your brother to enter Brother Qin's school, right? Gu Yundong was dumbfounded at first, but then her eyes lit up. So this Brother Qin opened a school in Fengkai County. Wait a minute, Lu Wei just said that he was the top scholar, right? From the way he addressed him, that guy didn't sound very old. Gu Yundong looked at Lu Wei with a smile. Don't be agitated, don't be agitated. Sit down and calm down. Tell me about Brother Qin's school. Lu Wei was stunned. He looked at her for a long time and suddenly realized that he had confessed. He was instantly annoyed. He looked at Gu Yundong accusingly. I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, are you looking for a fight again? Shao Qingyuan had already finished his porridge and could hear their conversation clearly. He wiped his mouth and said to Gu Yundong, leave the 2 roe deers at home to eat. It's easy to keep them in this weather. See if you can figure out how to make more dishes with the deer meat. Lu Wei almost fainted from anger. He turned to look at Shao Qingyuan angrily. The latter turned sideways and aimed his injured shoulder at him. Lu Wei immediately became listless. He took a deep breath and told himself that this guy was his savior. He could not be ungrateful. After slowly calming down for a while, he said, forget it, forget it. It's not a secret anyway. Everyone in the county knows. Only people in remote places like you don't know anything. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. Go ahead. Brother Qin's original name was Qin Wenjing. After he became the top scholar at the age of 18, he became an official in the Hanlin Academy in the capital. He was young and energetic, and he was also smart. He was full of ambition and wanted to make a contribution to the country and the people. But the late emperor, Lu Wei, paused. There was no need to elaborate. Everyone knew. The late emperor was muddle-headed and tyrannical. It was not easy for you to achieve results. Many loyal officials were depressed and even beheaded. In the beginning, Qin Wenjing was also suppressed everywhere. Fortunately, his position was not high and he did not have any backing or real power. In the eyes of those in high positions, he was not a threat. Although someone like him could easily become a pawn for others to use, Qin Wenjing still had a brain. He had safely dodged several dangerous situations. It was also because of this that he no longer charged forward. After that, for some reason, Qin Wenjing suddenly resigned from his post and traveled far and wide with his wife. In the end, they stopped at Fengkai County. Others didn't know the reason for his sudden resignation, but Lu Wei's family had connections. It was said that Qin Wenjing had met the crown prince, who was now the new emperor, before he resigned. No one knew what they had discussed. Lu Wei lowered his voice. Let me tell you, now that the new emperor has ascended the throne, a capable person like Brother Qin will probably be summoned back to the capital soon. Therefore, it's impossible for you to send your brother to study in his school. How can he still accept students at this juncture, right? Oh. Gu Yundong was enlightened. She looked as if he had a point. However, in the next moment, her voice changed and she asked with a smile, then why are you giving him the roe deer? Isn't it to enter his school? Chapter 128. Madame Fang wants to see young Master Lu Wei realized that this woman was not easy to deceive at all. She was too uncute. He sat back down angrily. I'm friends with him, aren't one? Seeing that he might be returning to the capital, I'm sending him some delicious food. Besides, I'm already so old. How can one enter his school? Gu Yundong nodded. Isn't that just nice? You have a relationship with him, and one have a relationship with you. Then do me a favor and talk to him nicely. How about he accept my brother as his student? Didn't I say that I know, but didn't you say that it's possible for him to return to the capital? It's just a possibility. You're not sure yet? Of course, even if he really wants to return to the capital, He used to be the top scholar in the examination. His knowledge must be very good. It's worth it for my brother to be his student for a day or a month, right? Lu Wei's eyes widened. F***ck, 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 F***ck. Could this woman read his mind? How did she say what he was thinking? Gu Yundong looked at him with a smile. Beside him, Shao Qingyuan tilted his shoulder, Lu Wei held his chest. Why was he so kind? If he was as heartless as Peng Zhongfei, he wouldn't have to care about this adulterous couple. After a moment of silence, he finally gritted his teeth fiercely. He lowered his head and muttered, "What friendship? One don't have any friendship with Brother Qin. Otherwise, why would I send roe deer meat so that my brother can enter his family school?" Cough cough. Gu Yundong choked on her own saliva. Lu Wei flew into a rage out of humiliation. But, do you think it's so easy to enter his school? The young master of the county magistrate's family wanted to learn from him, but was rejected. He didn't give him any face at all, okay? Brother Qin has his own way of accepting students. It's not useful just because you're rich and powerful. It's also not based on talent and looks. It's not easy to enter, okay? Could it be that the roe deer meat? Gu Yundong guessed softly. You're smart. Gu Yundong was speechless. Why did she feel that this reason was even more unreliable? However, Lu Wei lowered his voice mysteriously and said, "This is a secret that one deduced myself. I've asked someone to keep an eye on the Qin family for a long time. I realized that the servants of the Qin family often go to buy wild animals. Last time, Brother Qin took in a student because that student's father gave him a large piece of roe deer leg. I promised my father that I would definitely send my brother to his school. That's why one entered the mountains fearlessly. Do you think it's easy for me? So you're not allowed to snatch it from me." Gu Yundong felt that it was even more unreliable, especially when Lu Wei said that he had deduced it. The credibility was zero. "When are you sending the roe deer to his house?" "In a minute while it's fresh." Gu Yundong smiled. "Bring me along." "Not a chance." Gu Yundong analyzed for him. "Look, you want to bring 2 roe deers and a tiger to the county city. Oh, and the few of you. That carriage will definitely not be enough. 111 lend mine to you. Besides, I guarantee that I won't say a word when I go. I'm just going to see the world and won't fight with you for the spot. Besides, one might be able to help you?" Lu Wei frowned. Why did she sound so reasonable every time she spoke? That's fine. His stance could be said to be very unstable. Shao Qingyuan saw that they were done talking. "Let's go then." As soon as she finished speaking, Dong Xiulan suddenly came over from next door. She looked at Lu Wei and said, "Sister-in-law Fang is here. She wants to see young Master Lu." Chapter 129. So what if I hit you? Lu Wei was confused. Sister-in-law Fang? "It's the mother and daughter who brought you to Yongfu village," Gu Yundong said. This person's memory was really bad. Lu Wei suddenly reacted. "Then let them come over." Dong Xiulan was in a difficult position. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "They said they don't dare." That was why she went to the Zheng family and waited for young Master Lu there. Lu Wei frowned. Don't dare what? Don't dare to see me?" "They don't dare to see me," Shao Qingyuan said. Lu Wei blinked. Why, halfway through he remembered. Oh, I know. Back then, they seemed to have said that you were a wolf cub and were very scary." Gu Yundong glared at him fiercely. "Don't speak if you don't know how to speak. You're the wolf cub." Shao Qingyuan saw her small actions and couldn't help but smile. He was in a good mood. Lu Wei, on the other hand, was baffled by the glare. He said with a dumbfounded expression, "I didn't say anything. But then again, why do they call you a wolf cub? One don't think you're scary at all. Tieske, forget it. Since they don't dare to come, don't come. I'm busy. I want to see them." In any case, they were not familiar with each other, so it was probably nothing important. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. How many times had Madame Fang and her daughter been back and forth at the foot of the mountain? Previously, they had been brought home by Madame Zhou. When they heard that Shao Qingyuan and the others were back, they immediately ran over. Their spirit was really admirable. Dong Xiulan went back. She was just passing on the message. She wasn't familiar with young Master Lu, so she naturally wouldn't say anything. Lu Wei immediately threw Madame Fang and her daughter to the back of his mind and began to urge Gu Yundong. It's getting late. Let's set off now. Hurry back and prepare the carriage. Well, leave immediately. Alright, let's make things clear first. JVL carriage is meant for people. Without waiting for Lu Wei to retort, she continued, my carriage is newly bought. If you put the tiger and roe deer inside, what if my horse is frightened because it hasn't been trained? Lu Wei could only nod when he heard that. Only then did Gu Yundong leave the Shao family and return to the Zheng family. Unexpectedly, Madame Fang and her daughter did not leave. Chen Yulan immediately stood up when she saw Gu Yundong. She walked up to her and asked, why doesn't young Master Lu want to see us? How would one know? Gu Yundong looked puzzled. Did you say something to young Master Lu? Did you say something bad about us? You were in the Shao family just now, right? One couldn't tell, Gu Yundong. In order to get close to young Master Lu, you're not even afraid of the wolf cub. Gu Yundong looked at her coldly. Say that again. You act like you don't care about anything on the surface, but in fact, aren't you trying to climb up the social ladder? When you saw that young Master Lu was rich, you waited eagerly. You didn't even care about avoiding suspicion. As soon as he came back, you stuck to him. Slap. Gu Yundong raised her hand and slapped her. Madame Fang had been watching coldly from the sidelines. When she saw this, she rushed over and pulled Qingyuan back. Then she looked at Gu Yundong in shock. How dare you hit someone? So what if one hit you? Your mouth is so dirty. You should wash it properly. Gu Yundong took a step closer. Do you think that everyone has the same thoughts as you? Who is the person who has been wandering around the foot of the mountain for 2 days? Do you think that everyone is blind and can't see clearly? Who in the entire village doesn't watch you and your daughter make a fool of yourselves? If it weren't for the village chief, you would have been spat to death. Chapter 130, Sudden Despair, 2. Zhao Ritian waved his hand and decided to settle this matter quickly. When the 5 people opposite heard Zhao Ritian's words, they immediately revealed happy expressions. They knew that this matter had finally been resolved. However, just as the 5 of them were about to leave, a sudden change happened. Howl! Suddenly, a roar came from behind the 5 of them. The sudden sound frightened the 5 people because they were very familiar with that cry. That cry was completely a zombie's cry. The 5 of them hurriedly turned around and were shocked to see that their boss had turned into a zombie. At this moment, their boss still had an arrow stuck in his head, but it did not affect the other party's activities. After the other party saw the 5 of them, he pounced on them. Faced with this situation, the other 5 people had never expected to see something like this. Especially shocking was their boss, who suddenly turned into a zombie and pounced over. This development immediately frightened the 5 people. All of them wanted to escape quickly. Unfortunately, the boss didn't become completely stiff after turning into a zombie. He quickly pounced on one of them. Then they heard a series of tearing sounds. The young man who was pounced on was instantly bitten by the zombie boss. Quickly pull away from the other party. No, you can't pull away. He will be infected if it's already bitten him. At this moment, the others immediately reacted. A few of them wanted to pull away from the other party, but when they thought that the other party had already been bitten, they completely gave up on this idea. What are you looking at? Run quickly. Let's run in all directions. Run in all directions. Hurry. Upon hearing this sudden sentence, the remaining 4 people instantly ran in 4 directions. Now that a zombie had appeared in this place, it was completely unsafe. Therefore they could not stay here. The most important thing was to leave this place first. Just as Zhao Ritian was about to leave with his sister, he suddenly realized that the 2 people who had been shot by his sister had also gotten up. After they got up, they charged towards Zhao Ritian and his companion. They opened their bloody mouths, looking extremely ferocious. It was as if they were going to take revenge on Zhao Ritian and the other person for the previous hatred and conflicts. Seeing the 2 zombies rushing over, Zhao Ritian did not escape immediately. Instead, he gritted his teeth and raised his shield, knocking one of the zombies to the ground. Quick, go and help my sister. I'll deal with this zombie, Zhao Ritian hurriedly said to Chu Xiu. At the same time, he held his shield and kept hitting the zombie that he had knocked to the ground. Bang, 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 bang. A crazy smashing sound rang out. Zhao Ritian ruthlessly smashed the zombie on the ground, not letting it move at all. At the same time, Zhao Rishan's sister also raised her bow and shot the calf of the zombie opposite her. Soon the zombie fell to the ground. Clearly, she knew very well how to deal with such zombies. They had to have dealt with many other zombies before, which was why they were so experienced. They'll control his movements. You think of a way to smash his head. Zhao Rishan's sister quickly revealed her plan. They had dealt with this kind of zombie before. They knew that as long as they smashed their heads, they could get rid of the zombie in front of them. As long as they attacked fast enough, they could completely finish off the 3 zombies quickly. When Chu Xiu heard this, he did not do anything. Instead, he just watched calmly. When Sister Zhao Yutian saw Chu Xiu's actions, she immediately felt that something was amiss. However, she had no room to keep talking and persuade him. Instead, she hurriedly took out a hammer from her backpack. She walked past Chu Xiu and smashed the hammer in her hand on the zombie's head. Immediately, blood splattered. Soon, after a series of crazy beatings, the zombie was finally killed completely. Chu Xiu could tell that the other party had specially thought of a way to flip the zombie's body so that the back of its head was facing the sky. The other party was desperately beating the back of the zombie's head into pieces. At this moment, Zhao Riqian had also finished off the other zombie using the shield in his hand to smash the back of the zombie's head into pieces. Clearly, the two of them had already discovered the zombie's weakness, so they attacked very decisively and ruthlessly without any hesitation. After his sister intercepted the 2 zombies, Zhao Riqian and his sister hurriedly looked at the last zombie. However, at this moment, something even worse happened. Help! Oh no! Why are there so many zombies here? Where did they come from? The 4 people who had escaped previously actually ran back one by one. However, the 4 of them were in a very bad state because 2 of them were actually holding each other's arms and necks. It was obvious that they were injured. In addition, they could completely understand what the other party had said earlier. The other party had been bitten by a zombie. Stop following us. You've all been bitten by zombies. You'll definitely become a zombie. Do a good deed and lure the zombies away. The other 2 young men shouted angrily at the 2 people who had been bitten. In their opinion, since he had already been bitten, he should not continue to follow them. They might as well act honorably and sacrifice themselves to lure the 2 zombies away. That way, the other 2 could be safe. Don't even think that you'll die alone. Don't even think about surviving on your own. We must die together. The eyes of the 2 young men who were bitten were also red. They didn't care at all, and couldn't help but roar angrily. The argument between the 2 immediately attracted the attention of the other zombies. Soon, a large number of zombies rushed over from all directions. Clearly, they were attracted by these 4 people. After seeing the current situation, Zhao Ritian and his sister looked at the current situation in despair. If there were only a few zombies coming at them, they would have the confidence to think of a way to escape, but the zombies' numbers were already too terrifying. The current number was no longer that simple. It was no longer a question of whether they could escape, but a question of whether they could keep their corpses intact. Sister, it looks like this is the end of us. It looks like we have no way of leaving this place, Zhao Ritian said helplessly. Although he said that there was no way, his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Although Sister Zhao Ritian did not say anything, a very sad expression appeared on her face. She had not expected that they would encounter such a thing when they were clearly about to leave this place. It seemed that this was their fate. All right, we're all going to die here next. What a pity. I've never touched a girl's hand in my life, Zhao Ritian said with some distress. Now, he felt that he was really regretful. However, at this moment he suddenly saw Chu Xiu walking in. It indeed made him feel a little strange. Hey, brother, why aren't you afraid at all? Could it be that you've already ignored life and death? At that moment he was a little puzzled. This was because Chu Xiu did not look like someone who was facing death at all. Instead, he looked like he was on an outing. It's very simple because these zombies are not a problem for me, Chu Xiu replied very calmly. Brother, your mental fortitude is really good. You can actually make such a cold joke at this time, Zhao Ritian said speechlessly. He did not expect Chu Xiu to be so good at making cold jokes. Now, he felt that there was indeed something wrong with Chu Xiu's brain. Since he could still say such words at a time like this, he only felt that it was a little ridiculous. Looking at the huge number of zombies rushing towards them, Zhao Ritian suddenly wanted to smoke a cigarette. This was because the scene in front of him was very similar to the scenes in movies. The male lead was facing a large group of zombies as he smoked calmly and bravely faced this group of zombies. Chapter 131. Familiar figure Madame Fang took a step back and looked up to see Chen Liang walking out. She immediately started crying. Sister-in-law, you're poking at my heart. I've been Brother Tian's widow for so many years and rarely left the house. One didn't expect to hear you say this. I might as well die. Madame Zhou sneered. Go back to your house and cry. Chen Liang frowned and walked out from behind Madame Zhou. All right, you're her sister-in-law. What are you saying? Yes, one don't know how to speak. She didn't do anything wrong. 111 leave. Madame Zhou glared at Chen Liang fiercely before turning around and returning to her room. Chen Liang frowned even more and looked at Madame Fang impatiently. Why didn't he feel that Madame Fang was so unreasonable in the past? Don't cry anymore. Your sister-in-law has been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Don't take what she said to heart. Go back first. Uncle, you also think that what I did was wrong, right? One really don't have any other intentions. It's just that young Master Liu's family is in the county city. They have a big family and power. In the future, when Yulan marries into the Wu family will also want to do some small business in the county city. If we can build a relationship with young Master Liu, it will be helpful to the Wu family. Yulan will also have a status in the Wu family. Chen Liang sighed. Alright, I understand. You guys can go home first. Seeing that he did not believe her, Madame Fang was a little anxious. However, Chen Liang looked like he was unwilling to say more. She could only bite her lip and bring Qingyuan home. At this moment, Gu Yundong had long forgotten about the mother and daughter and had already prepared the carriage. On the other side, the big tiger and roe deer had already been loaded into Lu Wei's carriage. However, Lu An was a coward. Even if it was the tiger's corpse, he was still very afraid. Therefore, he could only let Shao Qingyuan drive the carriage. Lu An ran to Gu Yundong's side and jumped into the carriage. As a result, only Gu Yundong and Lu Wei were left in the carriage. Gu Yundong was speechless. Lu Wei, when the carriage left the village, Gu Yundong suddenly shouted, Lu An, come in. 111 drive the carriage. Lu An was so frightened that he subconsciously entered the carriage. Gu Yundong took the reins and sat on the shaft, swaying. Lu Wei's face was ashen. He was despised again. Gu Yundong drove the carriage behind Shao Qingyuan. Her driving skills were not very good. Shao Qingyuan saw that there was still time and slowed down slightly. When they arrived at the county city, the surroundings immediately became lively. Wind Chaser was a good horse. He was used to following behind Shao Qingyuan's carriage and did not need Gu Yundong to exert much effort. Qin Wensheng's school was in the east of the city. Lu Wei had to return to the Lu residence to bring his brother over first. Unexpectedly, when they were about to reach the Lu residence, Gu Yundong suddenly saw a familiar figure flash past. She was suddenly stunned. She sat up straight and turned around. At the next moment, she grabbed the reins and jumped down from the shaft. Lu An, come out and drive. One have something on. I'll be back in a while. With that he ran away. Lu Wei lifted the curtain of the carriage and only had time to see her back view. Shao Qingyuan, who was in front, also heard it. He subconsciously stopped the carriage and jumped down, wanting to chase after her. She was stopped by Lu Wei. She said she'll be back in a while. Anyway, I've already told her the address of Brother Qin's school. She'll find it. Lu Wei felt that since she was in such a hurry, she definitely wanted to go to the toilet. Chapter 132. It's Gu Dajiang? But Gu Yundong had already chased after the familiar figure in front of her and turned into another street. The person in front walked very quickly. Gu Yundong could only call out to him, Gu Dajiang, Gu Dajiang. However, that person did not react at all. In the blink of an eye, he entered an alley. Gu Yundong hastened his pace, afraid that the wrong person would disappear. However, this street was a little congested. There were even stalls in front. Gu Yundong was anxious and could not care less. She directly passed through the stall. She thought that she would be able to jump over, but the stall owner suddenly stood up. Gu Yundong avoided her, but she did not avoid the basket on the ground. The basket fell, and Gu Yundong could vaguely feel the things inside fall out. She did not even have time to take a look. She only said to the stall owner, "I'm sorry, big sister. 111 come back and compensate you later." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned into the alley. Seeing that the person in front of him had not disappeared, Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly ran forward. Gu Dajiang, father, you. That person turned around and Gu Yundong choked on her words. No. It wasn't Gu Dajiang. She had recognized the wrong person. That's right. This is a small county city under the Xuanhe prefecture. The probability of meeting Gu Dajiang is too low. How could it be him? However, this person's side profile was too similar. That person looked at Gu Yundong in confusion. Miss, what's the matter? If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. I'm on my way. I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else. Gu Yundong smiled apologetically. After watching the person walk away, she let out a sigh of relief and patted her face. It doesn't matter. We'll find him one day. Right, that vendor? Gu Yundong hurried back to the basket that she had knocked over earlier. Only then did she see what was in the basket. It was oranges. More than half of the oranges had fallen to the ground. The couple who sold them were squatting on the ground to pick them up. Gu Yundong quickly picked the oranges up and lowered her head to apologize. I'm sorry. I ran in a hurry just now and knocked over your basket. Count how many of them are broken. I'll compensate. No need. No, it's not broken. The man at the side immediately waved his hand and shook his head repeatedly. Gu Yundong looked up and met the man's face. He was stunned. You are, he looked familiar. However, the man suddenly lowered his head and turned slightly to avoid her gaze. Gu Yundong frowned and looked at the woman beside him. Then she came to a realization. It's you. Zhuangzi's parents had seen him once, so they almost didn't recognize him. Zhuangzi's father was called Sherdashan, and his mother was called He. According to Dong Zuyan, this couple was very timid. It seemed that they had encountered something in the past. Now, they did not dare to fight or snatch anything. They would retreat when they could. She did not know how these two cowards raised their children. Her son had become a rogue, and her daughter was also smart. No wonder when she had asked the four families to compensate her, the Hu family had pestered them endlessly, but this family had immediately nodded and said that there was not enough money. They had obediently gone to gather money. They were so obedient that Gu Yundong felt like he was bullying an honest person. Miss Gu, the oranges aren't broken. Let's just wipe them. If you have something to do, go ahead, he said softly. In the eyes of the couple, Gu Yundong was a little scary. After all, even someone like Hu Liang could not do well in her hands. Not only was he beaten up, but he also lost money. Chapter 133, Brother Qin. Take it for a moment, Gu Yundong felt that she might be a devil. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. She placed the oranges in her hand into the basket. Then she narrowed her eyes. She hadn't looked carefully just now, but now she noticed that the oranges in the basket were all plump and round. The skin was yellow and orange, and the shape was even. They were arranged neatly in the basket and looked indescribably beautiful. Did you plant this? Gu Yundong asked. He was stunned for a moment before nodding. We planted them. There aren't many of them. The fruits this year are quite good, so we chose this place to sell them. Do you want to eat them? These oranges are delicious. Gu Yundong nodded. He smiled and immediately peeled the orange for her. Gu Yundong looked at the orange in her hand. It was thin and juicy. After tasting a piece, her eyes lit up. It was really delicious. It was natural and unpolluted. It was even sweeter than the oranges in her space. She looked at the couple in surprise. She did not expect them to have such ability. Rubbing her chin, Gu Yundong wondered if she should trick the two of them into helping her plant the orchard. She was in need of experienced manpower. She would ask the village chief about their past. If it was appropriate, she could get busy. Gu Yundong ate an entire orange in a few bites and then picked a few more from the basket. He Yi and Sherdashin looked at each other. They were both worried, but they did not dare to say anything or ask anything. After Gu Yundong picked 4 or 5, he stopped, looked up, and said, "I'll take these first. Can you sell the remaining 20 or so and bring them back to Yongfu village for me? I don't have anything to pack and can't take them. I'll pay the money to you when one return to the village later, all right?" Sherdashin blurted out, "You want to pay?" Gu Yundong blinked. "Don't one have to pay for things?" "No, did they think that she was a freeloader?" Sherdashin shook his head repeatedly. No, that's not what I meant." Gu Yundong held his forehead. This expression was simply exposing himself. Seeing that it was getting late, she bade them farewell. "Then it's settled. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." She came and left in a hurry. Carrying a few oranges, she went straight to Qingyuan's hang school. She was panting after running for so long. But before she could reach her destination, she saw Shao Qingyuan and Liu An walking over with the carriage. As for Liu Wei, he followed behind the carriage dejectedly, looking like he had nothing to live for. Was this a failure? And why was he out so quickly? Where was his brother? Didn't he say that he would go to the Liu residence to pick up his brother first? According to Gu Yundong's speculation, it would take at least an hour for Liu Wei and the others to return to the Liu residence to pick up their younger brother and then go to Qingyuan's hang school to deliver the roe deer meat, right? At the very least, if Liu Wei nagged seriously, it would definitely take more than an hour. But how long had it been? Gu Yundong walked over and distributed the oranges in his hand to Shao Qingyuan and Liu An. He asked softly, "Is his brother Qin unwilling to accept his brother as a student?" "No, he isn't," Shao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. "He actually accepted it? But," she pointed at Liu Wei in surprise. "Then why does he look like the sky is falling?" Look. At this moment he was knocking his head against the carriage. Liu An was so frightened that he almost threw the orange away to save him. Chapter 134. Bring back the roe deer. Before Shao Qingyuan could answer, Liu Wei was already standing in front of Gu Yundong. His eyes were wide open, and his lips were pursed tightly. He panted heavily, looking furious. Gu Yundong blinked and blinked again. "Wasn't it your wish to accept your brother?" "But what does that have to do with me?" "Huh!" Gu Yundong replied. Liu Wei was already exasperated. "Brother Qin accepted my brother not because I risked my life to go deep into the mountains to hunt those 2 roe deers, but because he owes my family a favor." Gu Yundong was enlightened. "So, even if you didn't give him the roe deer, he would still accept your brother, right?" "That's right." His father had lied to him. This definitely wasn't his biological father. Gu Yundong narrowed his eyes and glanced at the carriage behind him. He asked, "Then, can you give me 2 roe deers?" "I've already given them to Brother Qin." "Since those 2 roe deers are useless, why did you give them away?" Gu Yundong wanted to pry open his brain to see if they were made of paste. Liu Wei also wanted to cry. "Do you think I want to? One gave him the 2 roe deers before he told me that he owed my family a favor." Gu Yundong clicked his tongue. As expected of the top scholar at such a young age. He's indeed sinister. "That's right. I've already given it away. One can't go back on my word and ask him to take it back, right?" Liu Wei used to think that Qin Wenjing was noble and magnanimous. When the court was in turmoil, he was a very far-sighted gentleman. As expected, he was still inexperienced. Gu Yundong looked at him. "Why can't I take it back? He accepted your brother to return the favor. If he accepts the roe deer, it's equivalent to not returning the favor. Let's go and ask him to take it back now." Liu Wei was stunned. This made a lot of sense. He really followed behind Gu Yundong and returned to school. Shao Qingyuan gave his carriage to Liu An and quickly followed. The school was not far away. Gu Yundong stood at the door and looked up at the signboard above his head. The corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. Indeed, talented people were willful. They didn't even give a name and just called it a school. The concierge knew Lu Wei. When he saw that Lu Wei had returned, he was a little surprised. He hurriedly went forward and asked, "Young Master Lu, is there anything else?" Lu Wei looked at Gu Yundong and said hesitantly, "I still have something to say. I'm here to look for elder brother Qin. Please inform him." The concierge nodded and quickly ran inside. Lu Wei thought about it and turned to Gu Yundong. "You want those 2 roe deers back because you want to send your brother to school, right? But do you think they will still accept your brother if you do that?" Bringing them back and sending them over was no different from taking off your pants and farting. It would even leave a bad impression on brother Qin. Gu Yundong glanced at him. Was he stupid? Did he really think that she was trying to get the 2 roe deers back? She was just finding an excuse to enter the Qin family. When she saw Qin Wenjing, she would definitely not mention the roe deers. Gu Yundong did not speak. He just waited quietly. The Qin family was not very big, and there were not many servants. The gatekeeper found Qin Wenhang's servant, and the servant went to the study. "Master, young Master Lu is here again." As he spoke, he glanced at the things on Qin Wenhang's table. It was an arrest warrant. On it was a portrait of a person. That person looked like a real person. It was said that Master had brought him back from the prefectural city. Chapter 135. The painting on the wanted list. Qin Wenjing was only 26 years old this year, and he was indeed elegant. It was said that back then, the late emperor had hesitated for a long time about choosing him as the top scholar. After all, since ancient times, the top 3 candidates had won with their looks. At that time, the 3rd place was already in his 30s, and he was still a little inferior to this man in terms of looks. Later on, there was still an old minister who argued on the basis of reason. He felt that the scientific examination valued knowledge, and appearance was secondary. Moreover, an 18-year-old top scholar would bring glory to the country, especially it happened during the previous emperor's reign. It could be recorded in history. Perhaps the last sentence had touched the late emperor's heart. He waved his hand on the spot and Qin Wenjing became the top scholar, the most handsome top scholar in history. Now that a few years had passed, other than the fact that his aura had improved, his appearance had not changed much. Hearing the servant's words, he frowned slightly. He was a little unhappy that he was disturbed. Without looking up, he said that Madam and I are out. He won't see us. After saying that, she lowered her head and looked at the wanted poster on the table. Beside the wanted poster was a piece of paper with a half-drawn picture on it. It was an imitation of the person on the wanted poster, and Qin Wenjing was holding a charcoal pen in his right hand. Upon hearing this, the servant turned around and ran out of the study. He did not expect to run into Qin Wenhang's wife, Madame Gu. Madame Gu walked in with a plate of pastries in her hand and smiled. "Why didn't I know I was going out?" Qin Wenjing raised his head and waved for the servant to leave quickly. He went over to take the pastries. "Why are you here? Aren't you riding with Ning'e?" She went to see the 2 roe deer. She was overjoyed to know that there would be wild animals for dinner. Madame Gu walked to his desk and saw the wanted poster. She then looked at the half-drawn map beside it. She laughed. "Master is indeed amazing. You've already learned how to draw like this." Qin Wenjing shook his head. "Not yet. I feel like something is missing." "Something was wrong. Isn't it good? They're very similar." Madame Gu looked at it carefully for a moment and felt that it was very lifelike. However, Qin Wenjing was very dissatisfied. He sat at the side and took a sip of tea. He said, "Prefecture Magistrate Dai is too petty. No matter how I asked him, he refused to tell me who drew this arrest warrant. He said that he promised that person not to leak any news about him." Madame Gu covered her mouth and laughed. "You're the one who taught me to keep my word. Why? Do you want the prefecture magistrate to go back on his word now?" He didn't say anything because he wanted to protect the painter's identity so that he wouldn't be in danger. "I won't tell anyone. I just want to exchange painting skills with him." Qin Wenjing picked up the one he had drawn. He paused for a moment, then crumpled it into a ball and threw it away. Madame Gu could not stop him and looked at him helplessly. However, Qin Wenjing stood up. No, one have to go to the prefectural city. There are only so many painters in the prefectural city. They'll find them eventually. As he spoke, he left the study to call for the servant. The servant had just finished speaking to the concierge when he rushed back. At this moment, Gu Yundong and the rest also saw the concierge who had just returned. Master and Madam just went out. Nonsense. You're the concierge. Wouldn't you know if they went out? Lu Wei was dissatisfied. The concierge said helplessly, they went out the back door. I couldn't see them either. Gu Yundong pulled Lu Wei. Forget it. It seemed like he didn't want to see her anymore. It would be too ugly and repulsive to argue at the door like this.